Chapter 2472. Wu Qianxian gritted her teeth. What good was it for a certain someone to remember her? Would he dare to forget her if he continued to shop with her like this? How dare he? Continue shopping. Disregarding everything else, just the compliments from the various shops were very pleasing to the ears. Ah, this lady is simply a fairy transformed into a human. Little brother, you are truly blessed to be able to gain the favor of such a beauty. How many lifetimes have you cultivated for this? These words were so pleasant to hear. In the end, Chu Yang simply sat down in front of a shop, and refused to move even a single step no matter what. A certain empress finally showed great mercy and ended this grand shopping event with imperial grace. Finally, on this day, Chu Yang, Wu Qianxian, Mo Qingwu and Tai Budian bade farewell to Zi Xiecheng. Carrying 10 space rings filled with gifts from the Tang clan's third young master, plus 7 or 8 space rings local specialties that they had purchased, they left for Eastern Royal Heavens. Until the day of departure, Chu Yang finally heaved a sigh of relief as if he had been granted amnesty. Torture. Absolutely the ultimate torture. No other. Minister Chu swore that in the future he would never fucking shop with women again. Until now his thighs were still sore. With his muscular strength, his thighs were still sore. This was really a little fucking unbelievable. Minister Chu's foot odor had completely spread after these 3 days of shopping. At night, when he took off his shoes, Wu Qianxian and Tai Budian immediately covered their noses and ran out. This was too much of a killjoy. Chu Yang was speechless about this. He looked at his own feet. Taking a deep breath, he muttered, "What's wrong with you? I'm already a high-level saint. How many times have I been reborn? I've been cleansed, and you still fucking stink? This is too unreasonable, isn't it? Is there any justice in this?" Calamity soared. A guy rolled his eyes and muttered, "Why is there no justice in this? It's simply too much justice. When the time comes when your feet really don't stink, you can almost fight with that mystery guy. Isn't it good that your feet are smelly? This is simply too good." Muttering like this, he went back to sleep. However, Chu Yang definitely didn't know what he was muttering. Even if he knew, there was no one to reason with. Chu Yang had no choice but to go out and wash his feet. Otherwise, even he would not be able to bear the smell. First, he used the heavenly tribulation divine technique to wash his feet from the inside out. Then he smelled them and found that they still had a smell. So, he quietly took out a ladle of spring of life and poured it on his feet. Washing his feet with the spring of life, there had never been such a person before. If anyone saw the truth, he would definitely beat him to death, even if it was a reckless waste of resources. But there was no such way to waste it. This person was truly shameless and had no bottom line. However, the spring of life was indeed a peerless spiritual spring and its effects were truly extraordinary. No matter how much he washed his feet, he couldn't get rid of the smell. But now his feet were fragrant. Wu Qianxian and Tai Budian walked in, and saw Minister Chu holding his feet and smelling them. For a moment, the two women were dumbfounded and speechless for a long time. This guy seems to be too talented. The scenery along the way was beautiful and gentle. Chu Yang and the 3 beauties floated away from the Demon Emperor sky. They set off for the next stop, East Royal Heaven. Tan Tan and his wife, Xia Dan Feng, who were previously used as an excuse by Mo Qingwu and Zi Xiecheng, had actually gone somewhere after they were separated from the Demon Emperor Heaven. They didn't even return to the Demon Emperor Heaven's base camp. But Chu Yang wasn't worried about the whereabouts of these 2 people at all. It could be said that there were very few people in the current world who could defeat Tan Tan in a head-on manner, except for Di Ho. If they were to talk about dishonest practices, there was probably no one more dishonest than Tan Tan in this world. Once someone took the initiative to provoke Tan Tan, there was basically only one outcome: wait to cry if there was a chance to cry. As for Brother Hu and the divine spirit of the calamity, they were left behind by Chu Yang to protect Zi Xiecheng. Moreover, Brother Hu hadn't fully recovered yet. Staying in a place like the Heaven Imperial Court, where spiritual energy was abundant, would be more conducive to recovery and breakthrough. The divine spirit of the calamity stayed in Luohua City and continued to think of ways to absorb the deathly aura of living creatures. In terms of deathly aura of living creatures, other than Purple Cloud Heavens, Luohua City seemed to be the most suitable place for the divine spirit of the calamity. All the way across the sea, Chu Yang and the others went straight to East Imperial City. Chu Yang and the others were running at full speed along the way. They didn't encounter any obstacles or disturbances along the way. Their journey was smooth sailing. A certain someone who had nothing to do would flirt with the 3 beauties, and would often provoke the 3 beauties to chase after him. So their speed didn't decrease but instead increased a little bit, And along the way, because Chu Yang deliberately stood on the opposite side of the three beauties, the intimacy between the three beauties also improved by leaps and bounds. In any case, it was very good. East Imperial City is in front. Chu Yang pointed to the front, where there was a place where rays of light lingered. It's so beautiful. The three beauties couldn't help but exclaim. Shui Leihan really knows how to enjoy life. Chu Yang pursed his lips and suddenly had an idea. Guess is Shui Qi here? Definitely not. Mo Qingwu's face was full of certainty. What? Wu Qianqian and Tai Budian didn't understand. Although they hadn't seen the clown with their own eyes, they had heard of him far and wide and remembered him in their hearts. If I were Shui Leihan, it would be better to chase a good brother like Shui Qi far away. Otherwise, sooner or later, I would be angered to death. Mo Qingwu couldn't help but laugh. Ha! Chu Yang felt that Mo Qingwu's words were really true. Great minds think alike. When we reach, let's eat something first before looking for Shui Leihan. Mo Qingwu said excitedly. Last time, I heard that the biggest restaurant in East Imperial Sky is located in East Imperial City, and it's called East Heaven's #1 restaurant. It's said to be very delicious. Alright, let's eat first. Let's reward you three female foodies. Chu Yang agreed. However, the words female foodie once again caused the three girls to pout coquettishly and chase after him. Chu Yang laughed heartily as he fled in panic. They arrived at East Imperial City quickly. At the city gate, after the four of them passed the identity verification, the four of them walked into East Imperial City with the crowd. After asking a few people, Chu Yang finally knew where the so-called East Heaven's #1 restaurant was. So the four of them rushed over excitedly. Satisfying their appetite was the most important thing now. Everything else was temporarily put aside. When they reached the front, they took a look. Even Chu Yang was a little surprised. This is really fucking worthy of that domineering name. East Heaven's #1 restaurant, it lives up to its name. Seeing it in person is even better than hearing about it. The restaurant was dazzling. Just the front hall alone was no less than a few acres of land. The entire restaurant probably occupied no less than 100 acres of land. That was not all. The most surprising thing was that this restaurant actually had dozens of floors. It was really towering into the clouds. This restaurant could accommodate 100,000 people for a meal at once. It was still more than enough. It didn't look cramped at all. Such a grand scale really made Chu Yang and the other three feel that it was an eye-opener. It was not much better than the legends of country bumpkins entering the city. Such an exaggerated restaurant. If it was in the lower three heavens, it would definitely be a loss. Tai Budian gave a positive evaluation. But it's different here. It's completely different. Chu Yang said lightly, I heard that we eat here. We all pay in purple cloud coins. Wu Qianqian and Tai Budian were a little speechless. It wasn't a problem for them to pay with violet cloud coins, but it was a different story when it came to the value of violet cloud coins. Because a single violet cloud coin was equivalent to 100 million Shuiyun coins. What Chu Yang said was tantamount to saying, 100 million Shuiyun coins was probably not enough for a meal. It can't be. Where are so many rich people? Tai Budian was a little puzzled and in disbelief. This is not a joke. It's true. As the capital city of the Eastern Royal Heavens, there are still many rich people here. Chu Yang said, the purpose of eating here is not necessarily to fill one's stomach. What's important is the noodles, the atmosphere, the environment, and the status. Come, your husband will also bring you to eat a good meal today as a reward. We have been nouveau riche for many years, but it's always hard to get a chance to be extravagant. Now that we finally have the chance, let's hurry up. Chu Yang's strange appearance made the three women cover their mouths and laugh. At the same time they scolded coquettishly, stupid face. Which one of the three women wasn't a national beauty? Which one of them wasn't a peerless beauty? When they laughed at the same time, it was like 100 flowers blooming in front of the #1 pavilion of the Eastern Heavens at the same time. It was really beautiful beyond compare. Devastatingly beautiful, capable of toppling countries and cities, capable of toppling heaven and earth. Everyone who passed by and saw this scene without exception, were all dumbfounded. Although those who came to the #1 pavilion of the Eastern Heavens to eat were those who had money, status, and class, and the beauties they brought could also be counted as 1 in 1,000, beauties like Mo Qingwu and Tai Budian had really never appeared before. Now Big Brother Chu Yang walked into the restaurant alone with three great beauties. He immediately attracted a lot of hatred. Who is this bastard? Why is he so unpleasant to the eye? Just look at this smug look, I really want to beat him up. No, I want to beat him up every time I see him. He actually dares to be so arrogant in the number 1 pavilion of the eastern heavens? So arrogant has he never been beaten before? Look at this bumpkin's virtue. If this guy can't pay the bill later, we'll have a chance. A heaven-sent opportunity. This? It's hard to say. To be able to bring 3 great beauties to eat? I reckon he can't pay the bill. There were whispers all around. There were all kinds of things being said. Chu Yang coughed twice. With an incomparable feeling of vanity, he held Mo Qingwu in his left hand, Tai Budian in his right hand, and Wu Qianqian in his arms. Gorgeously dressed, he walked into the hall with an extremely smug look. I also want to be smug like this. Chapter 2473. The sound of hearts shattering could be heard all around, accompanied by the sound of spitting out blood. Fuck. I'm going to spit out blood. This guy is too good at showing off. Isn't he too good at acting? I'm also going to spit out blood. He's not a fucking human. He's a beast. No, he's worse than a beast. I also want to be a beast for once. Hoo. Waiter, where are you? Give me a private room. I don't want to be in the hall. Nouveau riche Chu came to the front desk and said arrogantly, "Oh, you're joking. Our first inn of the eastern sky only has private rooms. We don't have that kind of noisy hall." The beautiful receptionist smiled gently. "May I ask which room you'd like to book?" They were all private rooms. There wasn't a noisy hall. Chu Yang immediately became embarrassed. Very, very embarrassed. He rubbed his nose, a little embarrassed. Ha ha. Mo Qingwu saw someone embarrassed and couldn't help but laugh. This receptionist clearly saw that Minister Chu was too extravagant and too bumpkin, so she deliberately stabbed him with a soft knife. Moneybags Chu had no choice but to suffer in silence. He couldn't be angry with a receptionist, right? What are the prices? Moneybags Chu finally exposed his country bumpkin side. Country bumpkin still cared about money. The receptionist introduced the rooms. She was obviously used to it and often greeted country bumpkins who came here to see the world. "Okay, I'll take the Sky Room 1. Chu Yang waved his hand. "I have money. I don't need the best, just give me the most expensive one. Quickly lead the way." Hearing this, everyone was a little speechless. The Sky Room 1 cost at least 1,000 purple cloud coins for a meal. That wasn't something that could be bought with money alone, especially when Chu Yang said that it was best not to use it. Directly giving the most expensive one, the cost of this meal would be very, very shocking. Moreover, even if you had money, you might not be able to get in. The receptionist couldn't help but look embarrassed. She walked to the side and asked for instructions. Then she smiled and walked over. "Sir, please turn left this way." Chu Yang clearly noticed that a young man in embroidered clothes who was standing by the railing upstairs with his hands behind his back seemed to make a gesture. He couldn't help but be moved. This guy didn't look like someone from the restaurant. The aura of nobility he exuded, and the entourage by his side, all of these proved that he was no ordinary man, but why would he testify for him? Minister Chu only wanted to show off, that's all. So, he wasn't even allowed to enter? Alright then. I asked Shui Leihan to bring me in. He would have a lot of face in front of his 3 daughters-in-law. As for what Shui Leihan thought, that was his business. Anyway, since his own brother wanted to show off, he had to let him do it no matter what, right? It was rare for him to want to mess around. Furthermore, it was in the eastern royal heavens. He was really giving Shui Leihan face, giving him such a chance to cooperate and act cool. In the end, even without Shui Leihan's intervention, the matter was resolved just like that. He didn't want to think too much about it. It was fine as long as he could get in. At most, he would stop acting tough, alright? Under everyone's envious gazes, Tycoon Chu strode forward with standard steps, amidst the contemptuous laughter of Mo Qingwu and the other 2 girls. This guy is definitely going to be miserable. Someone who was experienced and knowledgeable sighed. Young Master Bai just happens to be upstairs. It's really too coincidental. Everyone sighed. I was saying that even if he really had money, he wouldn't be able to enter the first room. Why did this guy go in just like that? So it's young Master Bai. Another person said. But why did young Master Bai help him? This question really has some deep meaning. Young Master Bai is known as the number 1 flower saint. What a pity for those 3 beautiful girls. Sigh. I think that's the reason too. Who would have thought that this fellow would so rashly and unknowingly go up against the 3rd person of our Eastern Royal Heaven's 3 princes? This fellow is really unlucky. Another person said. It was unknown if he was rejoicing in the other party's misfortune or if he was gloating. Yes, going up against the latest generation leader of General Bai's family who is currently being doted on. It's indeed a little bad. Young Master Bai. He was the direct descendant of General Bai, one of the two most powerful people in the Eastern Royal Heavens. Great General Bai and Great General Lan had always been on par with each other in the military. They kept each other in check. Secretly, the situation was also turbulent. No one was willing to submit to the other. These years, the Bai clan had risen with the rise of General Bai. It could be said that it was one of the few great clans in the Eastern Royal Heavens. Together with Prime Minister Gui's clan and General Lan's clan, they were known as the three great clans of the Eastern Royal Heavens. Gui clan, Lan clan and Bai clan. The three princes referred to the three descendants of these three great clans. As for the descendants of the Eastern Royal Heavens, because of their respected status, they were not included in this list. The three of them were all rising stars. Moreover, they were young and full of vigor. Their cultivation and strategies were not ordinary. They were all outstanding talents. They faintly had the demeanor of the rising generation of the Eastern Royal Heavens. As for liking women, yes, this was indeed a shortcoming. But since ancient times, beauties loved heroes and heroes loved beauties too. The flaws couldn't obscure the beauty of the jade. It was really not strange for young people to have such a hobby. At this moment, young Master Bai's face revealed a thought-provoking expression. He looked at the four people who were walking into the first room with a graceful bearing. His eyes were filled with eagerness. Even with his status, he had never seen such a level of beauty before. It seemed that today was destined to not be a waste of time. Since he had encountered them, he definitely couldn't miss it. No matter what methods or tricks I use, I must get these three women. I must get all of them. No matter the cost, no matter the consequences. Young master. These three little ladies. Haha. Beside him, a white-clothed soldier revealed a meaningful smile. Yes, not bad, really not bad. Young Master Bai smiled and nodded, giving his evaluation. I understand. This white-clothed soldier understood tacitly. Go ahead. Child Bai smiled with satisfaction. With such a smart and knowledgeable subordinate by his side, there were indeed many things that he didn't need to worry about. Yes. Just when Chu Yang had just walked into the Eastern Royal Heavens, the news about his registration had already been spread. This news was immediately transmitted to the city guard's manor. Then, what no one knew was, Chu Yang's news was immediately extracted and sent to the Prime Minister Manor and General Lan's Manor. And the Imperial City. These were three special channels. One belonged to the royal family, one belonged to the Prime Minister himself, and the last one belonged to General Lan. Of course, there was another secret channel that led to the Bai clan. But the Bai clan didn't know who Chu Yang was. After all, Chu Yang's identity. And it was highly confidential. Not everyone was qualified to know the information of this calamity sword master. He's finally here, finally here. The Prime Minister seemed to be looking at this information with blurred eyes. He smiled softly and murmured, "He went directly to the Eastern Sky First Pavilion? It seems. This is to give us a chance to react." In such a high attitude. Haha, with three beauties? Oh, is he trying to show off? To show off in front of the beauties? This Chu Yang is really... He immediately stood up. Get ready, I'm going to see His Majesty. See if I need to cooperate. Should I cooperate? Or His Majesty cooperate personally? On the other side, when General Lan received this news, he jumped up as if his butt was on fire. Get dressed immediately, I'm going to the palace to see His Majesty. General Lan was very anxious and didn't lose his pretense at all. Last time he almost messed things up. This time, he couldn't make any mistakes. Once Prime Minister Gui and General Lan moved, it was like a tiger and a dragon. The higher-ups of the Eastern Royal Heavens were here. It was already a full-scale shock. Everyone was guessing what had happened. These two big shots actually went to see His Majesty Eastern Emperor at the first moment? But no one below knew. The news about Chu Yang had already been blocked at the first moment. Otherwise, many things wouldn't have happened today. Chu Yang's awkwardness was probably not over yet. He pretended to walk into the target's room and began to order. Adhering to the characteristics of being rich and imposing, Chu Yang acted like a nouveau riche and ordered all the signature dishes of this pavilion. Not long after, the dishes began to be served one after another. Chu Yang greeted them and immediately began to eat. Mo Qinggu cheered and didn't want to fall behind. For a moment, the room was full of laughter and toasts. Tai Budian and Wu Chanshan weren't extravagant people, but today was a special day where they could finally relax, so they let Chu Yang do as he pleased. Besides, they also wanted to experience the legendary top-notch food in the Heaven Imperial Court and see if it was really worthy of its reputation. After all, they had been too repressed during this period of time. It was rare to have such a relaxing moment, and they didn't have to worry about anything. The couple went back to their old home, the Heaven Imperial Court, with the mentality of going sightseeing. Once in a while, they felt that it was very interesting and very comfortable. This was also the first time that they saw Chuyang so happy and relaxed after knowing him for so long. The four of them were eating when they heard someone knocking on the door. A feminine voice said, "May I come in?" Chuyang and the other three were startled. There were acquaintances here? Although there were indeed acquaintances in the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms, there were at most three of them. Other than Shui Leihan and Yen Russian, there was also Yen Russian. However, this voice clearly didn't belong to any of them. Who was it? Just as Chuyang was about to speak, the door unexpectedly opened by itself. The person outside didn't even wait for Chuyang to say whether he agreed or not. He opened the door automatically and walked in. The person who came in was a middle-aged man. He looked refined and elegant. However, that pair of slender eyes made people feel uncomfortable just by looking at them. It ruined the overall image. "You are?" Chuyang frowned. He was already a little unhappy. Chapter 2474. Chuyang was infuriated. "Do you think it's easy for me to bring my wife out to relax? To think that someone I don't know would come and disturb us? Could this fellow be someone sent by Shui Leihan? Why is he so unobservant? I'll have to have a good chat with that old and young one later." On second thought, someone sent by Shui Leihan shouldn't be so insensible, right? But if this person wasn't sent by the East Emperor, then who was this person? What was his motive? "Sir, he. The young man smiled reservedly and said in a condescending tone, "Please allow me to introduce myself. I am an advisor of young Master Bai's mansion. I have come here to discuss some matters with you. I wonder if it is convenient for you to do so?" "Young Master Bai? Who is he?" Chuyang frowned. "I don't know him. It's inconvenient. Please go ahead." Chuyang was already giving him a lot of face. He even used the word please. Wasn't that giving him a lot of face and giving him a way out? But when the young man heard that, he was filled with displeasure. Anger immediately appeared on his face. How dare he say that he hasn't heard of young Master Bai in the East Royal Heavens? Are you an idiot? At the very least, you're a complete country bumpkin. You're the kind that hasn't seen the world at all. Forcefully suppressing his anger, he said with a sinister smile, "Our young Master Bai is the direct descendant of great General Bai. Well, you should know what I'm saying, right?" "I still don't know." Chuyang frowned, also suppressing his anger. "What does it have to do with me who he is? Just tell me what you're here for." "Well, you're also a tactful person." The young man glanced at Emo Qingwu, Tai Budian and the other two. With a smile he said, "Then I'll make it clearer. The main thing is that young Master Bai wants to get to know you. Well, these three women." He smiled. "Sir, this is a great fortune that has fallen from the heavens and is waiting for you." As he spoke, a meaningful and self-evident tone flowed out spontaneously. Chuyang was stunned. Then he shook his head, feeling both angry and amused. He really didn't expect that he would encounter such a melodramatic thing. Snatching women? Tyrannical? Moreover, they were even trying to take advantage of him. This is really funny. Should he play along or should he play along? She's really a femme fatale? Chuyang shook his head. Then he looked at Emo Qingwu with a bitter expression on his face. "You guys tell me. What should we do?" Emo Qingwu pretended to lose all color in her face. Then she said in distress, "Husband, you have to protect us. You mustn't abandon us. You mustn't be a despicable villain who forgets righteousness at the sight of profit. I don't want you to be a heartless and unscrupulous person again. I can't afford to be hurt." Chuyang was speechless. What was this girl talking about? Again? Become a despicable person who forgets righteousness at the sight of profit? Again? Cruel and unscrupulous for once? What does again mean? It seems like I'm already heartless, despicable, shameless, and ungrateful. Too much? Isn't this too awkward? Stop messing around or else I'll lose my little sweetheart. Instantly his face darkened. He said to the young man in a deep voice, "Get out." Minister Chu was already very unhappy in his heart. This guy actually reminded Emo Qingwu of how heartless and unscrupulous I was in my previous life. I've already tried my best to make up for it, however. When did I forget righteousness at the sight of profit? Am I very despicable? How am I a villain? You want to open a dye house just because I gave you some color? refusing a toast. It won't feel good to drink a forfeit. The young man's face was calm. Ah, husband. There are some things that you can't do and some people that you can't provoke. Husband, you'd better think about it carefully. It's not the first time anyway. Think about it, think about it. Fuck off. How is it not the first time? What are you thinking about? Ha. Chu Yang laughed strangely and shook his head. Qin Wendian shook his head and sighed. Originally, when I came to the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms, I was very happy in my heart. From the start, I never thought of killing anyone. This is especially so when the person I want to kill is the direct descendant of a high-ranking official of the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms. However, why must you all force me to kill someone? I can tell that you all have already done your best. As he spoke, a surge of murderous aura appeared. The young man opposite him thought that Chu Yang was just a nouveau riche from a nouveau riche clan. He didn't even have the slightest bit of cultivation on him. Who would have thought that the murderous aura would suddenly surge towards him? At this moment, it was as if thousands of ghosts had appeared in front of the young man's eyes. Blood formed a sea, bones piled up like mountains, and ghostly cries rang out. It was like a boundless hell. Although this young man had some cultivation, it was very limited. Facing such a scene, he was shocked to death. He screamed subconsciously and turned around in a panic. As he ran, he screamed, "Ghosts?" His voice was very shrill. Chu Yang's divine sense had already locked onto this guy. He wanted to see where he was running to. How dare he covet my woman? Not only this person but also the people behind him. I can't let any of them off. This sword master wants to see who has the guts to do so. Even Shui Leihan didn't dare to do such a thing. To think that there was someone in the Eastern Royal Heavens who dared to do such a thing so openly. I must definitely meet such a weirdo. Chu Yang didn't have to wait for long. Soon his wish came true. Because a voice suddenly rang out. Useless trash. Then, from the opposite room, a white-clothed youth had already stood up and walked over. This person had a handsome face and a tall and straight figure. He had the demeanor of an elegant duke. His body naturally lingered with a kind of arrogant and commanding aura. It seemed that he had a great background. Just by reaching out his hand, he stopped the young man from running away in panic. The corners of his mouth were still curled up in a mocking smile. Looking at Chu Yang, he said, "I couldn't tell that you were actually a martial artist. You're hiding your strength everywhere. It's just that, to play with my subordinates so wantonly, I'm afraid it's a little unreasonable, right?" He smiled lightly and said nonchalantly, "Isn't there a saying that one has to look at the owner before beating a dog?" Chu Yang sighed and said lightly, "You're that young master Bai? The owner of this white dog?" Opposite him, the young man in white's eyes sharpened. He said lightly, "Why? Do you have a problem with this?" Chu Yang only felt an unknown fire in his stomach. The cultivation of the young man in white in front of him wasn't very good, but he was very arrogant. Those who didn't know would think that he was the son of Dong Huang. When he was about to teach him a lesson, he saw that there were already a few people flying out. They flew in front of that young master Bai. And it didn't seem to be over yet. There were also people coming out from other rooms to watch. When they saw that it was young master Bai here, they instantly understood. One by one they clamored, "Who dares to make young master Bai angry? Quickly kneel down and beg for mercy." I begged young master Bai to be merciful and spare my life. That's right. Who ate the heart of a leopard to be so daring? Young master, what should we do? An accompanying expert asked. First, don't disturb the beauty. Don't pay attention to anything else. That young master Bai instructed lightly. It seemed that the meaning behind his words was, as long as you don't touch the woman. You can do whatever you want with this man. You can do whatever you want with him. It doesn't matter what you do with him. It seemed that it wasn't just Chu Yang who was impatient. Even this young master Bai was obviously impatient. When those experts received the order, they shouted and pounced forward at the same time. In this number 1 pavilion of the Eastern Heavens, they actually attacked so openly. Take your time to eat. Don't bother with these annoying things, lest it spoils the mood. Chu Yang stood up with a cold face. This time Chu Yang was obviously really angry. He had lived 2 lives and seemed to have a lot of experience, but he really didn't see such an ignorant person. He didn't expect that when his family came to the Eastern Heavens excitedly and thought that they had reached home, they would actually encounter such a strange existence. If it was in other worlds, it would be fine if he encountered such a thing. Although he would also kill, he wouldn't be so angry. But this Eastern Heavens was Shui Leihan's territory. Looks like I have to help Dong Huang tidy up this Eastern Heavens. Chu Yang's face was dark and he was obviously somewhat angry. If he doesn't want to do it anymore, he might as well change someone else to be Dong Huang. This sentence didn't seem to be said casually. Now Chu Yang calculated that there were still 8 of his brothers. Except for Xie Danxiong, who occupied Moyen Heaven, and Gu Duxing, who occupied Extreme Heaven, he originally didn't intend to touch the Eastern Heavens and Demon Emperor Heaven, and Zishao Heaven was Zixieqing's. In that case, he was just short of 1 day to let each of his brothers have one. If he could drag Shui Leihan down, wouldn't it be just right? Take down this madman who dares to blaspheme His Majesty Dong Huang. Anyone who dares to resist, kill without mercy. Just as they were worried that they didn't have a reason, Chu Yang's sentence gave them a reason to attack. In an instant, everyone's spirits were lifted. Their attacks were even sharper and more merciless. But the next moment, the weather suddenly changed and everything changed beyond recognition. Under Chu Yang's glare, abundant murderous aura surged out without warning, and instantly locked down the entire number 1 pavilion of the Eastern Heavens. Everyone in the number 1 pavilion of the Eastern Heavens, without exception, all felt this shocking murderous aura. The 2 dukes who were drinking in a private room opposite originally didn't care about what was happening outside. But now they suddenly felt their hair stand on end. Suddenly they couldn't move at all. What's going on? The young man in green turned pale with fright. Even if you haven't eaten pork, you've seen pigs walk. To have such an aura, he should be at least a high-level saint, or even higher. Why would such a person suddenly go crazy in the number 1 pavilion of the Eastern Heavens? To be continued. P.S. Very sad. I'll hurry up and cook. I had beef jerky this afternoon and I bit my cheek. My mouth was full of blood. Extremely miserable and painful. My wife asked me what happened. In a panic, I spat out a mouthful of blood and then said weakly, I spat out blood. I can't take it anymore. My wife was frightened on the spot. She immediately called 120 and then wanted to carry me to the hospital. Cough, cough, no choice. I bit my cheek when I confessed. Then my wife flew into a rage, slammed the door and left. I hurriedly called my friends to help, called my wife and said, my brothers suddenly said they wanted to come to our house to drink. Then I tricked them into coming back, and the price was that I'll cook all the dishes for this meal. Today I want to be a house husband. Chapter 2475. On the opposite side, the young man in white smiled faintly. Using his martial arts to resist the murderous aura, he said, it should be Bai Lang, that fellow who provoked a tough opponent. Just now I heard him shouting outside, go out and take a look. The young man in green frowned. I can't go out. The young man in white smiled bitterly. The murderous aura of a saint has sealed the entire building. I can't move at all. Below a high-level saint, as long as I move, I will be killed by the murderous aura. I can't interfere anymore. This fellow always targeting women. It's time for him to be taught a lesson. This time he provoked a tough opponent. However, with great General Bai's strength, he should be able to protect him. The young man in green said, as long as he's not killed on the spot, and it's only a high-level saint, for the sake of great General Bai in Eastern Royal Heaven, anyone will have to consider. That depends on who he provoked. The young man in white smiled bitterly. In this world, as long as you don't provoke that person, it should be fine. You have to know that as long as that person is angry, he even dares to kill the son of Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud. Moreover, the entire Ink Cloud sky will change dynasties. It can't be so coincidental. The young man in green smiled faintly. Although I also wish that Bai Lang dies earlier. The two looked at each other and smiled. The outside couldn't interfere anymore. The two couldn't move either. Even the guards couldn't move at all. They could only listen to the movements outside. The more they listened, the weirder their expressions became. 2 loud pa-pa sounds were heard, and the 2 people who had rushed forward were sent flying backwards. Chu Yang's 2 palms had directly broken their necks, and they hung down softly. Not only had their necks been broken, but even their divine souls had been shattered by Chu Yang's palms. Not only had they died in an instant, but their divine souls had also been destroyed and their souls scattered. The entire space of Eastern Sky's first pavilion seemed to have changed from a warm spring to a cold winter. Under Chu Yang's unrestrained murderous aura, an endless illusion seemed to appear in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone seemed to see a scene of hell coming towards them at the same time. As if in front of them was a boundless sea of blood, white bones, rain of blood, and so on. And in this scene of hell, a young man in black slowly walked out, as if an ancient demon king suddenly appeared. It was filled with endless bloodthirst and endless cruelty. Everyone from the first pavilion had turned into clay sculptures at this moment. They suddenly realized that they couldn't move at all. She couldn't even blink her eyes or move her little finger. He had no idea how the person in front of him did it. Child Bai, who bore the brunt, shrank his pupils and felt that his body could not move. It was not until this moment that Child Bai realized that he had really provoked a tough nut this time. However, he was still fearless and laughed strangely. "You dare to touch me? Why don't you try touching me?" After all, this place was the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms. No matter how strong the other party was, they wouldn't be stronger than Great General Bai, right? But before he could finish his words, Chu Yang had already given him a fierce slap. "Try touching you? Alright, let's give it a try." Before his voice died away with a pa sound, this young Master Bai's face was slapped to the side. A few teeth were spat out from his mouth. His mouth was full of blood. It was just a slap, but more than half of his teeth were knocked out. He was stunned for a moment. He really didn't expect that this guy in front of him would be so merciless when facing the direct descendant of one of the three great clans in the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms. After being stunned for a long time, he turned his head and his eyes were filled with disbelief. "You hit me? You actually dared to hit me?" Chu Yang smiled coldly. "Didn't you ask me to try? I agreed to your request. How is it? Does it feel good?" Child Bai stared at Chu Yang with resentment. "Good? You have guts. If you have guts, try hitting me again. If you dare to touch me again, you won't be able to leave the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms. If you don't believe me, try it." Chu Yang shook his head subconsciously. Is this guy stupid? His whole body is in my hands and he still dares to shout like this. Is he trying to rush me? He laughed and said, "You actually have such a despicable request? Alright, I'll still say the same thing. Try it then. I'll satisfy your request." Then, without another word, he gave Child Bai another 2 slaps. Child Bai's mouth and nose were bleeding from these 2 slaps. His facial features were displaced. His originally handsome face was now full of malevolence. He hissed, "Good. Really good. If you have guts, kill me now. Otherwise..." He looked at Chu Yang fiercely. "Otherwise, when I catch you later, I'll definitely play you to death. Including your wife. Do you think I'll play you in front of them or play them in front of you? Ah. Kill me if you have guts. Do you dare? Do you dare to kill me?" He had lived like a prince for a long time and had been unscrupulous for a long time. The moment he was suddenly humiliated, he flew into a rage as if he had lost his mind. A violent, murderous intention flashed in Chu Yang's eyes. He said in a soft voice, "There's absolutely no problem. I will certainly satisfy your request. Not only will I satisfy your request, but I will also wait for your backer to arrive and kill you bit by bit in front of your old ancestor. I can guarantee that your ancestor won't dare to let out half a fart." At this moment, the person in charge of the Eastern Heaven's first pavilion finally rushed over. "That guest, please don't do anything." Calm down, Child Bai. What's wrong with you, Child Bai?" He immediately stood up and pointed at Chu Yang. "Quickly put Child Bai down. Do you know what you've done? You've got guts. You've caused a big disaster. You actually dare to..." Before he finished speaking, he saw Chu Yang's eyes glare. A dense, murderous aura immediately surged out, instantly forcing that person to be speechless. The next moment, Chu Yang waved his hand. A ribbon flew through the air and tied Child Bai's body. His whole body was hung up. His body was not completely in the air. Only one toe was left on the ground. As for why his cultivation was completely sealed, it was because he was purely bearing it with his physical body. This posture was extremely painful. Chu Yang waved his hand again. The several rooms of the Eastern Heaven's first pavilion were all opened with a schwa sound. In an instant it was a lot more spacious. With a roll of his sleeves, all the dust and debris flew out of the window. A big chair automatically flew over. Chu Yang sat down on it and crossed his legs high up in the air. At the same time, he released the restriction on everyone and said lightly, "From now on, I'll sit here and wait for this guy's backer to come. If anyone here dares to say a word, I'll kill without caring about burying. If you don't believe me, you can try." He casually grabbed one of Child Bai's attendants and said lightly, "Quickly go back and report. Tell your master that his precious baby has been detained by me. If he doesn't come in a moment, not only will this little one die, his whole family will die." Then he threw him out. This guy's body flew out like a rubber ball. Before his screams fell, he disappeared. After that person landed, he almost subconsciously ran away. Only then did he realize that his cultivation that was sealed had recovered. He wiped his cold sweat and hurriedly ran towards Great General Bai's residence. This was terrible. While the other party was a super ruthless character, Chu Yang sent away the messenger. He simply closed his eyes, swung his legs and waited quietly. Even though Child Bai finally couldn't bear the pain and screamed in a high and low voice, he was indifferent. Those who knew Chu Yang all knew that this time Chu Yang was really angry. Once Chu Yang was provoked to this extent, not to mention Great General Bai, even if the East Emperor personally came forward to intercede, none of these people today would be able to escape unscathed. You still haven't let go of Bai. A certain person hadn't finished speaking when Chu Yang flicked his finger. That person's open mouth suddenly broke a big hole. The next moment his whole body was completely frozen. Then there was a crashing sound, and the whole ice sculpture shattered into fine powder on the ground. What was even more terrifying was that the ground was covered with ice chips. Not even the slightest trace of blood could be seen. It was completely frozen. Then there were a few people who tried to move. Child Bai was in trouble, so they naturally had to show off. Maybe they would have a meteoric rise from now on. But these people were all killed by Chu Yang without exception. Chu Yang closed his eyes. His fingers were hanging below his body, but he could immediately react to any movement around him. His face was as cold as ice, like mysterious ice that had never melted since ancient times. The entire eastern sky first tower was overflowing with murderous aura. Anyone who entered this area would immediately find that they couldn't move. They couldn't move at all. Only behind Chu Yang and Mo Qingwu and the other two stayed in the room. It was still as warm as spring. It had to be said that Child Bai was still quite famous in this East Royal City. In just a short period of time, there were already thousands of people rushing in to rescue him. But these people were all completely frozen by Chu Yang's murderous aura without exception. No one was allowed to say a word. Time passed little by little. The more people came in, the colder Chu Yang's face became. Is he okay? Wu Qianqian was a little worried about Chu Yang's current state. He's okay. Tai Budian smiled. Chu Yang is preparing to start a massacre. In the East Royal Heaven, he actually encountered such a troublesome matter. No wonder Chu Yang was angry. And this time, I'm afraid it won't be a small matter. Mo Qingwu said softly, how can killing people who deserve to die be counted as starting a massacre? This kind of person, if it were me, I would also kill. A satisfied smile appeared on Tai Butian's face as she said, for our sake, even when his strength was weak, he still dared to kill the son of Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun. He still killed him. Now, killing the descendant of some great general who knows how many generations, what does it count as? As soon as this sentence came out, Mo Qingwu and Wu Qianqian looked over enviously. Because this special honor could only be enjoyed by Tai Budian alone. Actually, I think Chu Yang should have other intentions in it. Tai Budian frowned. Although he's using this as a pretext to make a fuss, it's true that these people must be killed. But I haven't seen through Chu Yang's other intentions. There's other intentions? Wu Qianqian frowned and pondered. Cough cough. Last night I slept on the sofa, my back was aching. Until now. Cough cough, it's finally clear up. Chapter 2476. Chu Yang can't be thinking of using this opportunity to shake the military power of the Eastern Royal Heavens, right? Mo Qingwu was startled by her own casual words. It's not impossible, Tai Budian said indifferently. Otherwise, facing such a debauchee, just kill him with one strike. There's really no need to make such a big fuss and let everyone know. But he just did it. Tai Butian's voice was very soft, but Chu Yang's face showed a trace of a smile. As expected of someone who had been an emperor, this point was indeed very accurate and thorough. The three girls were discussing in low voices. Time passed quietly. Finally, the people of the Eastern Sky's first pavilion shouted and neighed, as if there was an orderly army coming from afar. There was also the sound of hurried flying through the air. Obviously, a large number of experts had arrived. And at this time, as Chu Yang released his murderous aura, the two youths on the opposite side could finally move and walk. But as soon as they stepped out of the room, they immediately saw such a grand scene in the corridor. Everyone stood there like clay sculptures, not daring to move at all. Such a scene was really rare. The ground was full of sparkling and translucent particles. That was the result of Chu Yang directly freezing and then crushing a person. It was impossible to tell that it was a human body. It was as if there was no connection between the two. The two youths' hearts inexplicably tightened. Oh my God! What kind of strength did he have to be able to make such a scene? Even an ordinary high-level saint might not be able to make such a big scene, right? At the same time they looked at Chu Yang. What they saw made the two youths even more puzzled. Wasn't this person a little too young? Although most of the high-level martial artists had techniques to maintain their appearance, They rarely fixed their appearance to that of a teenager. Most of them set their appearance to that of a young man or even a middle-aged man. This way they would have more grace and bearing. And another reason was that when one was a teenager they might not really have profound strength, so it was difficult to maintain a youthful appearance. But today this convention that applied to most people was broken by the young man in front of them. The person in front of them was at most in his 20s, but how could the strength he displayed be so amazing? Seeing the two of them come out, the others present faintly heaved a sigh of relief. Who would have thought that the three great young masters would actually gather at the Eastern Sky's first pavilion today? With these two people stepping forward, the matter should be eased a bit, right? No matter how harmonious these three young masters were, they wouldn't turn against each other at such a time. After all, this was related to Donghuang Heaven's reputation. On the other hand, that tyrannical young man should restrain himself a little. Even if he didn't care about offending one of the three hegemonic powers of the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms, now that the representatives of the three hegemonic powers were gathered here, would he dare to offend all of them? Chuyang was still sitting on the big chair with his legs crossed. His eyes were staring at the two people with interest. The two of you should be the other two of the so-called three princes of the Eastern Royal Heavens, right? Chuyang chuckled. Duke Lan? Returned to the public? Was he a descendant of great General Lan and Prime Minister Gue? When the two heard this, their hearts skipped a beat. Actually, when the two of them left the room they might have other thoughts. Even if the perpetrator was tyrannical, would he really have the guts to offend the three hegemonic powers of the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms at the same time? As long as one had some sense, they wouldn't make such a choice. However, although their thoughts were beautiful, the reality was very cruel. The other party's words revealed a strong meaning that was not concealed at all. It was clear that even if Great General Lan, Prime Minister Gue and Great General Bai joined forces, they would still be in the other party's eyes. Whether it was the arrogant words of someone who didn't know the heavens and earth, or the confident words of someone who knew what was going on, this heroic spirit was already admirable. I am Lan Qingji. I am Gue Jiasong. The two of them cupped their fists and bowed at the same time. They didn't dare to show the slightest bit of neglect. Gue Jiasong was the first to speak cautiously. This Bai Lang has indeed offended you, but as the saying goes, killing people shouldn't go overboard. He has already received the punishment he deserved. Regarding this matter, can you give us some face? Let's end today's matter here. Gue Jiasong's attitude was very humble, and his tone was also as tactful as possible. In his opinion, since he was so humble, the other party should go down the slope and leave some face for everyone. Leaving a way out for everything would make it easier for them to meet again in the future. Give you some face? Chuyang laughed coldly. Then who will give me some face? If I didn't have some skills, the one who would be miserable now would be me. It wouldn't be impossible for me to be 100 times more miserable, right? Friend. Lan Qingji said indifferently. We also know that you have extraordinary strength and presumably, you have other things to rely on. But, this is after all the Eastern Royal Heaven. If you make too big of a commotion, are you confident that you can settle this matter? After continuing Gue Jiasong's humble attitude, Lan Qingji changed to using threatening words. However, in Lan Qingji's opinion, this couldn't be considered threatening, and was only stating a fact. After all, if the three big shots of the Eastern Royal Heaven really joined forces, their influence would definitely be able to shake the Eastern Royal Heaven. The surrounding people were convinced. These two, one with a white face and the other with a red face, cooperated seamlessly. The entire Eastern Royal Heaven? What terrifying strength. Ah. Chuyang laughed lightly. It's just that, no matter if it's the Eastern Royal Heaven or any other heaven, if someone insults my woman and I still have to give them face, then I'm afraid I'm not fit to be a man. Or if you have other choices when things come to a head, I only have this choice now. Is it very stupid? He raised his eyes, looked at the two people in front of him and said softly, the people who are going to deal with this matter should be here. If you don't want to get involved, quickly move to the side. His voice was filled with the toughness of an order. Swoosh, swoosh. A group of people broke through the window and brazenly barged in. Chuyang and the others were on a high floor. But, for a real expert, it was only a matter of a single leap. That was all. Seeing these people coming in, young Master Bai, who was hung up, looked as if he had seen his savior. He immediately shouted, "Kill him! Kill him! Kill him for me! I'm going to kill him!" The people who came were from the Bai clan. One of them was probably the leader of this group. His sharp eyes swept across the scene and he said coldly, "Put young Master down first." He actually ignored Chu Yang completely, as if Chu Yang didn't exist. Yes. A few warriors leaped up and pounced on young Master Bai. However, the next moment, the murderous aura rose again. Those people who just leaped up fell down immediately. That man's pupils shrank. For the first time, he looked at Chu Yang, who was sitting in the middle of the room. Chu Yang raised his head lazily and said lightly, "Put him down? Did you ask me? You think too highly of yourself, don't you think?" Everyone present didn't see how Chu Yang did it, but everyone knew that it must be Chu Yang who did it. "I'm the chief of the East Royal City Guards. Do I need your permission to do anything in the East Royal City?" The man stared at Chu Yang majestically, and the fierceness in his eyes was not concealed at all. "Come, take this arrogant man down. If he resists, kill him without mercy." Instantly, dozens of figures flew out. Chu Yang was still sitting upright and motionless. However, the stagnant atmosphere in the air seemed to have grown a little more out of nowhere. Dozens of people flew to a place about 10 feet away from Chu Yang. Suddenly, they seemed to have bumped into an invisible but indestructible thick wall. With a series of loud bangs, all of them fell down, bleeding from their 7 orifices. Obviously, their internal organs were injured, and their injuries were not light. This time, the chief of the city guards was obviously shocked. "Who exactly are you? Why did you come to the East Royal Heavens?" Obviously, he was shocked by Chu Yang's methods. Even his tone was much more polite. Chu Yang raised his eyelids in disgust. "If you don't dare to do anything, then go to the side and wait. Don't make me angry anymore. You've already flattered me. Now let's wait for Great General Bai's people, or the higher-ups of the East Royal Heavens, to come." With a crash, the group of people who came later seemed to have been forcefully restrained by an invisible force. They were clearly neatly separated into 2 sides. Because of the squeezing, some people were already squeezed to the point that they couldn't breathe. On the other side, the fear in Lan Qingji and Gui Jiasong's eyes became more and more intense. Who exactly is this person? He's so young, his cultivation is so high, and he does things so ruthlessly. His methods are a little too ruthless. After Great General Bai, he was beaten up on the spot and even tortured. He did not give face to Prime Minister Gui and Great General Lan. The city guard's position was not very high, but it was directly under the authority of the East Royal Heavens. It was also disdainful. Who exactly is this person? What is he relying on to be so arrogant? This Duke. Gui Jiasong's face was solemn, and he said cautiously, "Since Bai Lang asked for it and Duke's attitude is so firm, we don't want to ask for a rebuff here. We just want to ask one more thing. What's Duke's name?" Chu Yang's eyes were still full of playfulness as he looked at the 2 people. He said lightly, "My surname is Chu. My surname is Chu." With these 3 short words, Gui Jiasong's and Lan Qingji's faces changed greatly. Beads of sweat seeped out from their faces. The 2 of them thought of a person at the same time. A person who they had never met before, but who they absolutely could not offend. That person, who dared to do this, who had this strength, who seemed to have done this kind of thing more than once, could only be him. Chu Yang. It's really him. It's really him? This is a crazy guy. When his strength was still weak, he even dared to kill the son of a heavenly emperor. Is there anything that this person doesn't dare to do? If you provoked others, you could always reason it out. But if you provoked Chu Yang in the aspect of women, it would be worse than provoking a saint monarch. This was the consensus of all the great heavenly emperors. They never thought that the person Grand Duke Bai provoked today was actually the #1 killing star in the world. Chapter 2477. Gui Jiashou and Lan Qingji originally wanted to stand out and show off their family's foundation and how different they were from the rest. They also wanted to show that they could do what Bai Lang couldn't do. With this, they wanted to completely suppress Bai Lang in the future. But the moment they guessed Chu Yang's identity, this thought disappeared without a trace. They stood aside obediently, their faces ashen. They didn't even dare to leave this troublesome place. If they didn't know Chu Yang's identity, everything would be fine. They could even leave this place. But now that they knew Chu Yang's identity, it wouldn't be so easy to avoid the whirlpool of this matter. They were full of regret. Wouldn't it be good if the 2 of us just sat in that private room and pretended not to know? We could even watch the show. Why did we have to come out? Great, now that we've been dragged into this mess. It's hard to get off now. We can't leave. This is so uncomfortable that we want to die. If their family knew, they definitely couldn't avoid a round of punishment. If it was just a simple punishment, it would at most be physical pain. But if there were other things, the 2 of them didn't dare to think any further. As for suppressing Bai Lang, this was even more out of the question. This fellow had offended Chu Yang directly. He would definitely die. Why should they compete with a dead person? In the Emperor Dong Palace, Dong Huang Shui Leihan was high and mighty. He was a little tired and bored as he reclined on the dragon throne, but his attitude was extremely relaxed. Opposite him was Great General Bai, who was saying something. It was obvious that Shui Leihan was a little absent-minded. Often, when Great General Bai lowered his head to report, there would be a meaningful look in his eyes as well as some struggle. Right at this moment, Your Majesty. Prime Minister requests an audience. Your Majesty, Great General Lan requests an audience. Shui Leihan and Great General Bai were stunned at the same time. What could make these two big bosses come together? Is there a riot in the Eastern Royal Heavens? If it wasn't such a big matter, it wouldn't alarm these two, right? Summon them. Yes. Before he finished, Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan rushed in together. Seeing that Great General Bai was present, both of them were surprised. What's the matter? Shui Leihan asked lightly. Your Majesty is here. General Lan cupped his fists. He said something that only he could understand. Others could hear, but most of them couldn't understand. This matter. Great General Bai didn't seem to know about it yet, so he could only speak vaguely. What if His Majesty doesn't want Great General Bai to know about that matter, but I say it out loud? Wouldn't that be another mistake? Who's here? What are you talking about? Shui Leihan was perplexed. Although Great General Lan was usually a concise and comprehensive person, his words had never been so concise and comprehensive. There wasn't even a hint of it. That person, that sword master has come. Prime Minister Gue said very obscurely. Hearing that, Shui Leihan instantly responded with an His face lit up with joy as he laughed out loud. This bastard, he's finally willing to come. Great General Bai was puzzled by all the things in front of him. It was obvious that he knew all three of them. Only he was not used to the situation that he did not know. He asked casually, Your Majesty, may I ask, who is this sword master? Why is this subject so confused? I don't understand anything. At this moment, Shui Leihan was in an extremely good mood. Since there were no outsiders here, he was about to explain a little when he heard a commotion outside. Someone was rushing in at a high speed. Something important seemed to have happened. Then a servant came in to report. Your Majesty, someone from Great General Bai's residence came to report that Grand Duke Bai has been detained by a tyrannical villain. His life is in danger and he's waiting for rescue. The other party is at least a great expert at the peak level of a saint. Great General Bai's body shook. There's such a thing? Shui Leihan was also very surprised by this incident. In the Eastern Royal Heavens, there weren't many people who dared to do this. Even Great General Lan and Prime Minister Gue didn't seem to dare to do such a thing openly. Who was actually so unscrupulous? Wasn't this too arrogant? This was practically challenging the authority of this Eastern Emperor. Great General Bai's face turned green and red. He finally turned around. Your Majesty, please allow me to go and settle some family matters. One had to admit that Great General Bai was still very rational at this moment. She was very smart and spoke very intelligent words for the occasion. The phrase, family matters, had defined this incident as a private matter and saved His Majesty the Eastern Emperor's face. But now that the incident had developed to the point where his family members had come to the palace, it meant that it would be completely useless for others to come forward. If he wanted to save the situation, he could only do it himself. At this moment, the anger in Great General Bai's heart could be said to have reached the clouds. I'd like to see who is so daring to humiliate me like this. Well, since we have nothing to do, why don't we go and take a look together? Shui Leihan suddenly smiled strangely. The Emperor was willing to go to the scene personally, not because of Great General Bai's family matters, but because he vaguely felt that the initiator of this incident should be someone he knew. Great General Lan and Prime Minister Gue understood tacitly and said, Indeed, since we have nothing to do, let's go and take a look together. It's indeed the best. This time, it was Great General Bai's turn to be a little hesitant. For the three of them to come together, this seemed a little inappropriate. When he said that it was a family matter just now, his original intention was to refuse to watch. But why was His Majesty the Eastern Emperor suddenly so interested? If His Majesty went, if the matter was cleared up, it would be fine if his descendant was in the right, but if not, then his family would be embarrassed. But according to his guess, his family was most likely not in the right. After so many years, could it be that he didn't even know what his family was like? But Great General Bai didn't have any position to object, so he could only pinch his nose and agree. He could only pray in his heart, that guy better not go too far. Those rumors that he heard earlier, please don't be rumors. These 4 people were all peerless experts, and even the head of the officials, Prime Minister Gue, was the same. Naturally, they didn't need any attendance and just walked leisurely. They walked out of the palace leisurely. The expert from the Bai family who came to deliver the message was so shocked that he almost wet his pants when he saw this scene. In all honesty, I only wanted to invite Great General Bai from my family. Why did I invite His Majesty Dong Huang as well? This was a really big deal. It was bad news. Who exactly is so arrogant in the Eastern Royal Heavens? In the East Royal Heavens, openly challenging the authority of Great General Bai? Great General Lan seemed to frown unconsciously. It's hard to say. Prime Minister Gue also frowned. Shui Leihan smiled lightly, not commenting. But Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan both had a vague guess in their hearts. It should be possible, perhaps, it was that person? His Majesty the Eastern Emperor should have guessed it too, otherwise he wouldn't have come personally and taken the initiative to participate in such a small matter. There was no reason for such a coincidence. They had just received news that that person had entered the city, and then something happened to Great General Bai's men. If it was really him, then today's scene would be too lively. They couldn't help but admire the descendant of Great General Bai. He was really too awesome. He had just entered the city and probably hadn't even sat down properly yet. Yet he had already provoked him. Just how astute and how blessed they must be to be able to achieve such a perfect combination. Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan secretly exchanged glances, somewhat gloating in their hearts. If their guesses were correct, then Great General Bai was really going to be in big trouble today. But this fellow had always been eccentric and everyone didn't like him. If he was unlucky, then so be it. Both of them were thinking in their hearts, as long as we aren't unlucky. Luckily, the one who provoked that person was the descendant of Great General Bai. If it was their own descendant, they probably wouldn't be able to cry even if they wanted to. Both of them secretly swore in their hearts. In the future they would definitely discipline their own family members strictly. This group of troublemaking brats might really be able to kill someone at any time. They had to guard against this. Great General Bai took the lead. Rushing to the front, his face was very, very ugly. Great General Bai felt that this was no longer a matter of the life and death of his descendants, but an important matter of his own face. In the East Royal City, not giving Great General Bai any face. This was intolerable. So Great General Bai didn't notice the strange expression that flashed across Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan's faces. As they walked forward, slowly the expressions of Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan also became somewhat strange. An expression of "just as I expected" appeared spontaneously on his face. This old man is truly rejoicing in your misfortune. Your Majesty, this, in front is the #1 tower of the eastern sky. Prime Minister Gue had a faint smile on his face. Looks like something happened here. #1 tower of the eastern sky? Shui Leihan asked in confusion. So what? Prime Minister Gue sighed. That Lord Sword Master. After entering the East Royal City, the place where he settled down was this #1 tower of the eastern sky. Shui Leihan's expression also became exceptionally interesting at once, almost choking on the wind. He slowly exhaled before saying, in that case that Great General Bai's descendant is really a rare talent. He has hidden his abilities well. In such a short period of time he's able to do it. He actually managed to do such a big thing. Prime Minister Gue almost laughed out loud. He said with a hunched back, that's right, the descendant of Great General Bai is indeed a hidden talent. Great General Lan sighed from the bottom of his heart. He's really a genius. Great General Bai sped ahead, the wind whistling, and he was even more worried and anxious. He actually didn't hear clearly what was said at the back. However, he vaguely heard that His Majesty seemed to be praising his descendant as a rare talent. He was delighted and deliberately slowed down his pace, waiting for Shui Leihan and the other two to catch up. He said, he's just a child fooling around, how can he be considered a talent? Your Majesty, you're overpraising him. Cough cough. Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan spat towards the sky, and then coughed continuously, coughing until their faces were red and their necks were thick. It took them a long time to recover. Chapter 2478. In the blink of an eye, the four of them had already arrived at the first tower of the eastern sky. What they saw shocked them. The scene in front of them was too spectacular, too grand. They saw that the first tower was completely surrounded by many soldiers and horses. There were at least hundreds of thousands of soldiers and horses here, surrounding the unusually vast first tower so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Looking carefully, all the soldiers and horses were under Great General Bai's command. In the distance there were still military experts flying over. Seeing this situation, Xue Leihan frowned slightly. This old Bai was really unlucky this time. There was no end to his bad luck. Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan sighed in their hearts at the same time. No matter what happened, it's not a big deal for you to dispatch the experts. But dispatching troops on such a large scale is too much of a taboo. The troops still belong to the Eastern Imperial Heavenly Court in name, not your old Bai's private army. It's a fact that you can command them, but it's a bit too much to use them like this. Especially, it was seen by His Majesty the Eastern Emperor. This is simply an indescribable tragedy. It's already bad enough that you have such a dishonorable person in your family. But now you've even done something like this. Great General Lan and Prime Minister Gue seemed to be silent and didn't express any opinions. But they were muttering in their hearts. Looks like after this incident, no matter what the final result is, Great General Bai will definitely be unlucky. It's just that, for the time being, we can't be sure how unlucky he will be. Seeing such a grand scene, Great General Bai was also furious. He roared like a thunderbolt. Who allowed you to dispatch troops? A bunch of bastards. Who gave you the military order? Who gave you the guts? An officer suddenly stood up. Reporting to the general, this operation was carried out by someone from the residence with the general's military order. We didn't dare to disobey. Hearing this, Great General Bai's breath was stuck in his throat, almost choking to death. That sentence just now was intended to clarify something, but who knew that he would encounter such an honest person who came out to say the truth, intentionally or unintentionally pushing himself to an even more embarrassing state. The military order was left at home? Family members could be used at will? What's more, it was very effective. This was really not nice to hear. Turning around to take a look, Xue Leihan, General Lan and the others were already nowhere to be seen. Great General Bai glared fiercely at this general and said, "You take this old man up there. I want to see who has the guts to act so recklessly." Since things were already like this, it was better to see how it would end. Hopefully the madman upstairs would give him a chance. Great General Bai could only comfort himself like this. Chu Yang heard that the clamor outside had suddenly quieted down. He immediately knew that a heavyweight had finally arrived. However, he still sat on the chair and maintained his previous state. His face was as cold as ice. He only raised his eyes slightly and quietly looked at the entrance. Great General Bai stood in front of Chu Yang with a whoosh sound. He looked majestic and solemn. Everyone's heart trembled when they saw this. Great General Bai actually came in person. It had always been rumored that Great General Bai valued this descendant of his family very much, but he still didn't expect that he would personally make an appearance today. Put Bai Lang down. Great General Bai waved his hand and said lightly. He seemed to be talking to Chu Yang, but also seemed to be ordering his subordinates. Then the two of them jumped out. Military experts and high-level saints. Both of them. Anger rose in Chu Yang's heart. He snorted coldly and said, "Go back." The murderous aura that was like raging waves finally transformed into surging sword energy that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. It surged out violently. However, the murderous aura alone was no longer enough to stop these two high-level saints. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. For a moment, the sword energy was everywhere. The two military experts moved up and down several times, darting left and right. However, they couldn't even take half a step forward. After a while, blood gradually appeared in the air. It was obvious that these two high-level saints had already been injured by Chu Yang's tribulation sword energy. The strength of both sides was clear, but military orders couldn't be disobeyed. The two military experts knew that their chances of winning were slim, but they still tried their best to advance. They would rather die than retreat. Stop. Great General Bai's eagle-like eyes stared at Chu Yang. However, he still maintained his indifferent tone and said, "Who are you?" Chu Yang sat still and said coldly, "You're that Great General Bai who raised a nest of unfilial grandchildren? How dare you? How dare you?" Several people shouted angrily. Great General Bai's face turned green. However, he forcibly held back his temper that was about to explode. He said, "What exactly happened here? With your strength you actually did such a thing. Don't you think you're degrading yourself?" Chu Yang snorted and said, "You'll have to ask your own people about this. Only they know what they did best." General Bai's eyes turned to those followers of young Master Bai. Those people suddenly trembled all over like sifting chaff. "But what exactly happened?" Great General Bai sensed that something bad was going to happen. From when they were in the palace to when they were dragged out, His Majesty the Eastern Emperor was still there. The informant didn't have a chance to explain the whole story. Only now did he have a chance to ask. This feeling of being led by the nose and being passive to the extreme made him very uncomfortable. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, how would those few people dare to lie? They recounted the whole story. Although some avoided the important points and dwell on the trivial, it was basically true. Great General Bai could only hear the veins on his face twitching violently. His own descendant, the descendant that he valued the most, brazenly snatched someone else's wife in broad daylight? Moreover, all three of them at once? That's why he provoked them into a fight? However, the person involved was an extremely tough person, a top expert in this world. This matter was really too shameful. Not to mention being in the right, it didn't even touch the slightest edge. Useless little bastard. Great General Bai scolded fiercely. Great-grandfather, save me? Young Master Bai cried miserably. Blood and sweat from the pain on his face dripped down. Great General Bai's face was like water. He said, "This matter is indeed Bai Lang's fault. However, you've already beaten him, punished him and killed him. I'm afraid you've gone a little overboard." He pondered for a while and said, "It's just that this matter is ultimately my Bai clan's fault. I also don't have the face to pursue the matter. Everything ends here. I'll let Bai Lang apologize to you solemnly. However, you also have to bear the compensation for the people you've killed. How about we each compromise and let this matter rest?" In Great General Bai's view, he had already given Chu Yang a lot of face by dealing with this matter like this. Over there, young Master Bai had been hung up for so long. Now, his biggest backer had finally come in person. Seeing that he was about to be rescued, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. He looked at Chu Yang fiercely and thought, as long as Grandpa can go back alive today, I will immediately dispatch people to catch this guy at all costs. Together with those three delicate beauties, I'll use the cruelest methods to deal with this guy and play him to death. I'll make you beg for death. Chu Yang laughed strangely and said, "Great General Bai, how did you become a great general? Can you also take a step back when someone wants to touch your wife?" Great General Bai was stunned when he heard this. Then he shouted angrily, "What did you say? How dare you?" Chu Yang didn't care about Great General Bai's anger. He still laughed and said, "What did I say? To tell you the truth, don't do to others what you don't want done to you. You can't do it yourself, but you're forcing others to do it. You seem to think that you're right. You're giving me a lot of face. I'm really puzzled. How can you say such things? You've opened my eyes again today." Great General Bai's eyes flashed. He said in a deep voice, "What else do you want?" "Kill," Chu Yang said lightly. It seemed as if he was stating a very simple question. Along with this word, waves of murderous aura surged out like the waves of the Yangtze River. It surged and lingered in the air. "Kill?" Great General Bai laughed strangely and said, "Young one, do you know that I've already given you a lot of face?" Chu Yang sneered, "So, indulging in the act of snatching other people's wives is considered giving face? This is really a strange story." Great General Bai's face turned cold. "Young one, you're presumptuous." Chu Yang said lightly, "Presumptuous? Not counted. How is this presumptuous? Do you know that I've waited so long for you to come before killing, just to not give you face?" Great General Bai's face stiffened. "Young one, what do you mean?" Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, "I don't know if you know that your grandson's favorite thing to do is to play with other people's wives in front of their men. But what I like to do the most is to kill these people little by little in front of their biggest backers." Great General Bai's face turned colder. "You dare?" Chu Yang laughed. "What great military power. I'm a coward. I can't stand being threatened. I'll let them go now. I'll let them go a few times." Before he finished speaking, Chu Yang waved his hand. White light suddenly moved. Young Master Bai screamed. One of his hands had already flown out of his body. Before it could land on the ground, it was pulled by an invisible force to the front of Great General Bai. Chu Yang pretended to be respectful and said, "I'll return the first part first. Then I'll return the other parts. Great General Bai, please don't be impatient. Don't be anxious." Great General Bai was so angry that his body was trembling. His eyes were about to split open as he shouted, "Men, take down this madman for me. Take him down at all costs." Everyone responded loudly. However, a faint voice suddenly sounded, "Who dares to make a move?" Before he finished speaking, Prime Minister Gue and General Lan had already landed on the ground. No one saw how the two of them appeared, and no one knew where they had been hiding. They just appeared out of nowhere without any warning. The entire eastern sky first tower was instantly shaken. Chapter 2479. Most probably, no one would have imagined that the publicly acknowledged three pillars of the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms would all appear here. When Prime Minister Gui and General Lan came down, they saw Gui Jiasong and Lan Qingji at first glance. These two experienced experts almost fainted. They thought that there was only Bai Lang's matter here, and were only thinking about how to watch the show. Why are people from our two clans here too? Please don't cause any trouble. This is going to kill us. The two hurried forward. Little brats. The two were just about to get angry. Lan Qingji and Gui Jiasong rushed to explain with long faces, "This has nothing to do with us. The two of us are just here to watch the show." When Prime Minister Gui and General Lan heard these words, it was as if they had heard the sound of nature. They immediately heaved a big sigh of relief. "Motherfucker, I almost had a heart attack because of you two little brats." Then he flew into a rage and slapped them twice. "Bastards. Don't you know that there are some shows in this world that can be watched and some that can't be watched?" The two dukes were slapped so hard that their heads tilted to the side, and they almost spat out blood. It could be seen how angry these two big shots were, and there was also a lot of hidden fear in their hearts. It was just that not many people noticed this scene of the two old men teaching their grandson. After all, everyone's attention was attracted by Chu Yang and General Bai. But the next change made everyone's eyes widen. These two people jumped out, obviously blocking in front of Chu Yang, and directly facing General Bai. Could it be that these two people had actually stood up to oppose Great General Bai? At this moment, Great General Bai's expression was very unsightly, extremely unsightly. He intuitively realized that today's matter didn't seem to be so simple. But the anger in his chest couldn't be vented. He said angrily, "Old Gui, Old Lan, are the two of you going against me?" Prime Minister Gui bent his body and said in an aged manner, "Cough cough, according to the ways of the world, we naturally should not have internal strife. However, the cause of this matter is clear. It is indeed your descendant who has committed a great taboo. Even if he really dies, he deserves it. It has nothing to do with anyone else. However, Old Bai, you are so indiscriminately biased. We really can't stand it anymore." General Bai almost couldn't believe his ears. "You're saying, you're really going to stand on the side of an outsider and go against me?" General Lan said righteously, "Old Bai, we're not going against you, but we want to protect the Eastern Royal Heavens. Justice is in the hearts of people. How can black and white be inverted? Our Eastern Royal Immortal Realms has always been a place that abides by the law. Bai Lang's actions have angered the heavens and angered the people. He is worse than a beast. Why should we protect it?" His words were so righteous that they inspired reverence. General Bai was so angry that he almost blacked out. He said fiercely, Good. It's rare for you to have such upright thoughts. But I must kill this person today. Even if we become enemies because of this, even if His Majesty knows, I'm sure he won't blame me." The two old rivals working together made General Bai so angry that he was about to go crazy. He completely gave up his position. How could he lose face in front of so many people? How could he collapse? Naturally, he didn't care about anything. Originally, even if a descendant was really killed, it wouldn't be a big deal. But now it had turned into a fight for face and pride. "No, I will definitely blame you." A clear voice said, "And this person, no matter what, you can't kill him." As this voice suddenly sounded, the air suddenly shook with the aura of an emperor. It was as if an emperor had come out and ruled over the world. Eastern Royal Heavens, Shui Leihan had arrived. Shui Leihan's figure suddenly appeared in the air. He was dressed in a yellow robe and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at General Bai indifferently, his eyes full of disappointment. "If the heavens want to punish us, we can do it. But if we do it ourselves, we can't live." General Bai, such a perverse, shameless, greedy, lustful, shameless, heinous descendant. You are actually still protecting and shielding him so vigorously. What is the reason for this? Shui Leihan said indifferently, "And the military's token is actually left at home so casually, allowing an unfilial descendant to use it to mobilize our army? Bai Shirtang, how do you explain this?" General Bai looked at the Eastern Emperor's stern appearance and his face turned pale. And Bai Lang, who was hanging above, also finally widened his eyes in disbelief. His eyes were full of despair. Chu Yang's expression didn't change, but he finally stood up and said in a low voice, "You're here." Shui Leihan smiled bitterly. Since you're here, how can I not come? When this sentence came out, everyone was so shocked that they were speechless. General Bai was the most shocked. Just now, he was still doubting whether everything before him was a trap set up against him, with Prime Minister Gue and General Lan joining forces to make things difficult for him, with the intention of completely overthrowing him, starting from trapping his descendant and ending with the appearance of the Eastern Emperor. But now it seemed that it wasn't the case at all. Because the person that his descendant had provoked wouldn't be used by anyone at all. Because, from the meaning of His Majesty's words, it seemed that this person actually didn't even dare to offend His Majesty? Since he was here, His Majesty had to come too? What kind of person was this? Grand Duke Bai, who was hanging on the pillar, finally understood what a sharp iron plate he had kicked this time. The trouble that his lustfulness this time had brought was no longer as simple as him not being able to bear it. Perhaps even his own elder master, or even the entire Bai clan wouldn't be able to bear it. At this moment he couldn't help but feel so regretful that his intestines turned green. Of course he was mostly lamenting his bad luck. For such a tyrannical existence, even if he could only see it once in a lifetime, it would be a great blessing. And he not only saw it, but also wanted to snatch his wife? Grand Duke Bai was basically speechless at this moment. Chu Yang said lightly, "I've said before, for such a person, I want to get to the bottom of it. Destroy his greatest reliance and then kill him. If he only took liberties with my wife, I'll just kill him and be done with it. But if the power behind him still wants to protect him and condone him, then even the power behind him will also be eliminated." He turned his head. "Young Master Bai, I'll kill you now in front of your backer. Now, do you still think that I can't do it?" Everyone kept quiet out of fear and the whole room was silent. Even His Majesty East Emperor didn't dare to offend such a formidable existence, yet young Master Bai wanted to snatch his wife with great fanfare. Such ability to cause trouble, such outstanding luck to seek death, was really at the peak of perfection. It was still unknown whether there would be no one like him in the future, but it was definitely unprecedented. Even if Yuan Shida came back to life compared to young Master Bai of today, he was still inferior. Yuan Shida only wanted to snatch one. But Grand Duke Bai wanted all three. This difference couldn't be calculated. Grand General Bai finally understood what kind of existence his descendant had provoked this time. However, now that things had come to this, it was already over. He clearly knew that after this incident he no longer had the right to speak in the imperial court of the Eastern Royal Heavenly Court. In terms of military power, he no longer had the right to speak. Even to the extent that whether the entire Bai clan that he had single-handedly created could be preserved was still uncertain. The huge loss and shock, as well as the kind of regret that came from the depths of his bones, made someone like Grand General Bai almost break down. "Your Majesty. Your Majesty." Tears flowed down Grand General Bai's face as he slowly knelt down. "Your Majesty. I have followed you for hundreds of thousands of years, and I know that I have contributed and worked hard and even worked endlessly. Could it be that Your Majesty today really doesn't care about our past relationship at all?" A hint of pain flashed across Shui Leihan's eyes and he sighed. "Bai Shitang, you and I have lived together for hundreds of thousands of years, and it's indeed not a short period of time. You have indeed contributed and worked hard for me, so I have always been waiting for you. You are a very capable person. It's really not easy for you to walk step by step to where you are now. That's why I waited for you to confess to me." Shock and disbelief immediately appeared on Grand General Bai's face. Then he knelt down and kowtowed repeatedly. "I know my mistake." "No, you still don't know your mistake." Shui Leihan shook his head lightly. "I was waiting for you to explain some things to me, but you didn't do anything. Now it's about time." Bai Shitang felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave, his whole body cold. "Your Majesty. You already know." Shui Leihan heaved a long sigh. "I've always been reluctant to part with you as a ruler and subject. But today..." He exhaled softly. "We're about to launch an attack on the purple cloud heavens, and I can't allow anyone to continue to exist on my side." Grand General Bai knelt down in a daze, his expression seeming to have aged by millions of years in an instant. There was only one thought in his mind, so. "His Majesty knew right from the start that I came to the Eastern Royal Heavens as a spy." Chu Yang didn't pay any more attention to Grand General Bai. He stood up and slowly walked towards young Master Bai, saying lightly, "Remember, Junior? Don't ever lust after other people's wives again. It's not a big problem for a man to like beautiful women, but if this kind of lust exceeds the bottom line that everyone allows, then it's courting death. he slowly reached out his hand and pressed down on young Master Bai's head, saying softly, "You're the leader of all evils. The people I can't forgive the most in this lifetime are people like you. And my women in this world, not to mention you. Even if a great emperor and a saint join forces, they can't touch them. Whoever touches them, I'll kill them." Chu Yang exerted force in his hand. With a soft "pa" sound, this young Master Bai's head suddenly exploded entirely. Quite a lot of blood splattered onto the face of Grand General Bai, who was not far away, but he didn't move at all, as if he was in a daze. Chapter 2480. Chu Yang let go and young Master Bai's corpse fell to the ground. His eyes scanned Lan Qingji and Gui Jiasong's faces. Although the two dukes didn't think that they had done anything evil, they couldn't help but feel a chill down their spine. The leader of all evils, Yan. Great General Lan and Prime Minister Gui murmured, looking pensive as if they had understood something. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. At the same time they thought of Chu Yang's words. "You have a backer, I'll kill you in front of your backer. Let's see who dares to say anything." He really did it. He did it without any pretense. Everyone felt a chill down their spine. At the same time they were also very excited. They had to admit that punishing a young thug with a huge backer like this was really too satisfying. From that day onwards, the Eastern Royal Heavens issued a strict order. Greed and lust were listed as the #1 unpardonable crime in the Eastern Royal Heavens. Unpardonable, kill without mercy. "I thought you wouldn't do anything." Shui Leihan walked side by side with Chu Yang and said with a smile, "When I came here, I never thought that I would have to make a move. But this time it was that guy who came to me on his own. Especially he violated my biggest taboo. That day the Taiyu heaven and earth perished. How could he be an exception?" Chu Yang smiled. Shui Leihan couldn't help but sigh. It seems that the will of the heavens does exist. Long before they left Mo Yuntian, Shui Leihan had talked to Chu Yang about the internal problems of the Eastern Royal Heavens. And the fact that the military power was divided between the two of them was determined by both of them to be a big drawback. And General Bai was the one with the problem. Shui Leihan had been keeping him for two reasons. Firstly, he wanted to cast a long line to catch a big fish. Secondly, he had another purpose. But for so many years, General Bai didn't do anything strange. Shui Leihan was also a little confused about this. So he had once mentioned to Chu Yang that he should check it out when he passed by the Eastern Royal Heavens. At that time, Chu Yang had sternly refused. He would never work for others for nothing. He didn't expect the heavens to play tricks on him. He had just come to the Eastern Royal Heavens this time, and the first thing he did was to bump into this little guy. He might as well just do it. On one side, Prime Minister Gui and Great General Lan were confused when they heard this and said, "Your Majesty, what is going on here?" Following the death of a profligate son, a huge clan that had been glorious for hundreds of thousands of years was actually uprooted by Shui Leihan. Even Great General Bai was immediately dismissed from his position and sent to prison. Both Prime Minister Gui and Great General Lan were at a loss for what to do with this sudden change of events. Although that Bai Lang deserved it, and Great General Bai did not teach him well and was also guilty of negligence, Shui Leihan's way of dealing with him by capturing him all the way and even exterminating his entire family was a little too much. Although Bai Lang's actions were outrageous, he should not have implicated the entire Bai family. This kind of implicating was simply unreasonable. Especially, some of the military officials who were attached to the Bai family, as well as some of the rich and powerful families, were also implicated. The scope of this case was so wide that it was shocking. It was just the beginning, but more than 100,000 people had already suffered, and His Majesty Dong Huang had no intention of stopping. Even if this matter involved Chu Yang, who had a great background, such a way of dealing with it would undoubtedly chill the hearts of the people of Dong Huang Heaven. Prime Minister Gui and Great General Lan did not dare to question Dong Huang Heaven's decision in person, so they finally asked what they were puzzled about. Shui Leihan smiled lightly and answered the question with just one sentence. Bai Shitang is actually one of Saint Monarch's men. He came to Dong Huang Heaven as a spy and hid his identity for 100,000 years. Hearing this, Prime Minister Gui and Great General Lan turned pale with fright. They never thought that there would be such a reason. I have been tolerating, observing, and even making use of him to do some things. Sometimes a spy is very useful. To be honest, it's not that I didn't really want to subdue him, but, for so many years he never took the opportunity that I gave him. Shui Leihan said lightly, now the decisive battle with the extraterrestrial demons is approaching, and Dong Huang Heaven is about to send out millions of troops. And Saint Monarch Master Yun has also reached the point where I no longer need to tolerate him and pretend to be polite with him. If Bai Shirtang were to be kept alive, he would only become a disaster. So, I used this opportunity to get rid of him. Shui Leihan smiled and said, although it's a bit of a big fuss to destroy a huge clan for a playboy who kidnapped a girl, after this incident, I believe that there will be fewer people in the Donghuang Heaven who will dare to violate the law and kidnap girls. This will have a huge effect on the atmosphere of the Donghuang Heaven. Shui Leihan sighed softly. Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan shuddered at the same time. How would it just be fewer? From now on, for at least 10,000 years, there might not be a single person who would dare to think about this. Just because of this incident, all the top clans with hundreds of thousands of years of history were wiped out. And they were clans that were at the center of power, with hundreds of thousands of people involved. Who would be able to bear such a serious consequence? If any playboy from any clan wanted to kidnap a beauty, even if his brain was filled with lust, he would have to first consider whether his clan was more powerful than Great General Bai's clan. Was the pleasure of the lower half of his body more important, or the lives of his entire family more important? If he chose the latter, then he'd better take a rest. And Great General Bai's clan was one of the top clans in the entire Donghuang Heaven. There was no clan bigger than the Bai clan. In this way, in the future, the safety of the unmarried and beautiful ladies in the Donghuang Heaven would be guaranteed unprecedented safety. Besides, this time, we'll also completely cut off the Saint Monarch's tentacles in the Donghuang Heaven. Shui Leihan said softly, we've been preparing for this for a long time. Today is just an opportunity to let it all out. Your Majesty is mighty. Prime Minister Gue and Great General Lan were drenched in cold sweat. They didn't expect His Majesty to be so scheming to such an extent. Mighty? How am I mighty? Shui Leihan smiled. Do you think that if I don't do anything, Chu Yang will let them off? This guy has always been someone who seeks revenge for the smallest grievance. His heart may not be as big as the tip of a needle. Especially when it involves his woman, that's where his reverse scale lies. If I don't do anything, Chu Yang will kill until blood flows like a river. Chu Yang is a super fierce person who even dares to kill the son of the Celestial Emperor for his woman. How can a mere Bai Lang and the entire Bai clan be spared? Shui Leihan made a rare joke. Then he smiled and said, so I might as well take this opportunity to get rid of the spies and clean up the Donghuang Heaven. Chu Yang said unhappily, this is blatant slander. I'm right here and haven't left. You're mocking me like this? How am I so unreasonable? My heart must be bigger than the tip of a needle. Shui Leihan smiled. When have you ever been reasonable? You said that your heart is bigger than the tip of a needle. Do you believe it yourself? Everyone laughed. Lan Tianxiao, from now on do your best to reorganize the army. Select the best from the entire Donghuang Heaven army and gather experts to train their battle strength. Shui Leihan said solemnly, get ready to fight the extraterrestrial demons and exterminate the demons. Hearing this, Great General Lan was stunned. He felt the blood in his body boiling at this moment. Yes. Shui Leihan said, yes, this time it's highly likely that the great Celestial Emperor will join forces to fight the extraterrestrial demons. When the time comes, don't embarrass the Donghuang Heaven. Great General Lan said loudly, I'll definitely do my best until my death. I'd rather die than let our Donghuang Heaven be looked down upon by others. That's good. Shui Leihan turned to look at Prime Minister Gue. Prime Minister, your task is to take care of all internal affairs. From now on, actively prepare military provisions and supplies. What is needed for a long and cruel war, you know very well. Prime Minister Gue said solemnly, yes. After arranging everything, Shui Leihan's expression was as gentle as usual. He turned to ask Chu Yang, are you going to make a trip down from my place this time? Chu Yang nodded. I do have this intention. However, I also have other objectives. Shui Leihan said, go ahead. Chu Yang said, now, my brothers are stirring up chaos in the world and using all kinds of methods to find the origin of the 10,000 Saints' true spirit. They already have a certain goal in mind. Shui Leihan's expression froze. There's such a thing? Therefore, during this period of time when I'm not around, you must pay close attention to the related activities in the Heaven Imperial Court. Once that place is really dug out, we will face the most terrifying enemy. Chu Yang said solemnly, when that time comes, I'm afraid you and the Demon Empress will have to personally help. Otherwise, you know the consequences. It's just one chance. Shui Leihan nodded slowly. I understand. I'll make all the preparations and be ready to fight at any time. The battle that I've been looking forward to for a long time. His expression was filled with anticipation, desire, and great pain. After staying in the Eastern Royal Heavens for 3 days, Chu Yang and the others set off again and returned to the Heaven Imperial Court that they had been away from for many years. Shui Leihan personally sent them to the secret passage. When Chu Yang was about to leave, Shui Leihan asked, "If I had sided with Great General Bai in that matter, what would you have done?" Chu Yang chuckled. "You also said that I'm not ambitious, but I have a lot of brothers. Furthermore, the few of them have always liked to compete with each other. Since one of them has become the Celestial Emperor, the others will definitely have to do the same. However, the space left for us doesn't seem to be enough. If we add in the Eastern Royal Heavens, it would probably be enough. Yes, one for each of us." After Donghuang, Shui Leihan asked, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After a long time, he stuck out his thumb and cursed, "You're so fucking ruthless." Chapter 2481. Heavenly Layer. Heavenly Layer Continent. The land that he thought would be difficult to step on was once again under his feet. Standing on top of the mountain, Chu Yang breathed in the familiar air. Suddenly, a strange sour feeling arose spontaneously. Heavenly Layer Continent, I, Chu Yang, am finally back. I see you again. I only love the soil of my hometown. I don't care about the gold of other countries. Mo Qingwu, Wu Qianqian, and Tai Budian, the 3 women returned to their hometown. Their eyes were filled with tears. After experiencing the endless killing in the Heavenly Imperial Court, he actually had the urge to cry when he returned to his hometown, which he had not seen for a long time. Just by standing on the land of her hometown, she felt as happy as returning to her mother's embrace. "Let's go home." Chu Yang roared excitedly. "Let's go home." The 3 women's eyes lit up at the same time. The biggest wish that they dreamed of every night was right in front of them. "You can go home, but you have to go back to my house first." Chu Yang smiled and got up first. The 3 women were a little embarrassed at the same time. There was nothing to say. Going back to the Chu clan first was the right thing to do. The 3 of them had already been confirmed, so they had to go back to their husband's house first. Then it would be their turn to go back to their mother's house. "Say, when we go back this time, should we settle this matter?" Chu Yang touched his chin. His heart was really full of wild thoughts. Now there were 3 people behind him. Working together to deal with him, they should be able to fill their stomachs. Thousands of miles of mountains and rivers were crossed in an instant. Southeast, flat mountain ridge. Since Calamity Sword Master Chu Yang led a group of brothers to turn the tide and eliminate the scourge of the continent, Southeast Flat Mountain Ridge became the holy land of the entire Heavenly Layer continent. Every day, many martial artists came from afar just to take a look at the hometown of the heroes. With the mentality of a pilgrimage. Chu Clan Courtyard. As the origin family of Calamity Sword Master, Chu Clan maintained a low profile. They did business as usual and didn't expand the family's scale. They were still the same. They weren't afraid of trouble, but they didn't take the initiative to cause trouble. But the more this was the case, the more praises the Chu family received. Look at the Chu family. It's the family of the Calamity Sword Master who saved the entire Chongtian continent. Look at how humble they are. That's what a great family should be like. This is the true style of nobility. Seeing it is admirable and hearing it is fascinating. That's right, I've never admired a clan so much except for the Chu clan. Praises like these could be heard all over the place. However, the new clan master, Chu Failing, had strict instructions for everyone in the clan. No one was allowed to become arrogant just because they were favored. They must guard against arrogance and impatience. The Tribulation Sword Master is Chu Yang, not anyone else in our clan. Being able to enjoy Chu Yang's honor and the courtesy he brings is already a great benefit. Don't think of using this status to do anything. Anyone who violates this rule will be expelled from the clan and killed without mercy. However, no matter how low-key the Chu family members acted, the southeastern flat mountain ridge had already become the publicly acknowledged holy land of the martial world. This was a fact that could not be changed. Yang Ruolan was in the pavilion in the courtyard, doing breathing exercises seriously and concentrating on cultivation. Then she carefully tidied up her face, washed and groomed seriously. She went to the room where her son used to live and cleaned. She meticulously wiped the table, swept the floor and tidied the bed. Then, she sat quietly for a while before coming out to tidy up her own family. Since her son left, Yang Ruolan did this every day, day after day. Chu Failing was a little puzzled by his wife's actions and had some complaints. What's the use of tidying me up every day? We've been married for so long. Besides, I'm not sure when my son will come back. Maybe. Yang Ruolan was always furious at Chu Feiling's doubts. Of course I have to maintain it. I can't let my son come back and see an old woman. Besides, you said that he's not sure when he'll come back. Maybe he'll come back tomorrow. What if he comes back and sees that his old room is gone or in a mess? How sad will he be? How can I not tidy up carefully? Chu Feiling, who was sprayed with saliva all over his face, ran away gloomily. What did I say? I'm just stating an objective fact. How can it be misunderstood like that? Master Chu suddenly realized that he had completely lost his status in front of his wife since his son went missing. After finding him with great difficulty, he thought that he could change his view of him, but he realized that he had lost his status even more. Since his son ascended to the heavenly imperial court, he had completely lost his status. Everything, no matter what, had to give way to his son in front of Yang Ruolan. Even if his son wasn't around, even if he hadn't been home for a long time, it was still the same. Chu Feiling was speechless about this, but he couldn't do anything about it. He often sighed, "A woman's motherly love is the most terrible feeling in the world." This sentence was later regarded as the most classic saying in the heavenly imperial court, and was passed down through the ages. Yang Ruolan walked out as usual and looked at the gate for a while. She always felt that perhaps one day, under her watchful eyes, her son would suddenly appear from afar, throw himself into her arms and affectionately call her mother. This feeling of eagerness and expectation made her look forward to and wait for him every day. A gentle breeze blew past, lifting up her dress and making it fly messily. Those who walked past her, whether they were from the same clan or outsiders, couldn't help but bow and greet her respectfully, "Madam Chu." Then they walked past. Yang Ruolan nodded and smiled, then continued to look. At this time, the morning light had gradually risen, and the sun was high in the sky. The slanting sunlight pulled her shadow long, as if it could stretch to the end of the world. Yang Ruolan was still looking at herself, sometimes looking at her own shadow. Her shadow reached the horizon, and so did her longing. When the sun rose, the shadow would gradually shorten, and her son would come back with her longing, right? When her own shadow was about the same as her own, if her son hadn't come back, then she would have to go back to work. She stood there in a daze and her eyes were misty. In the eyes of the world, Yang Ruolan was definitely a mother who was endlessly envied by the world. Her son was the master of Calamity Sword. Her son was a hero. Her son saved the heavenly continent. Her son had unprecedented and astonishing achievements. When he was not even 20 years old, he had ascended to the heavenly imperial court and became the legendary immortal ascended. Yang Ruolan truly had all the glory that her son could earn for his mother. As such a mother, how could she not be satisfied? But Yang Ruolan was really not satisfied. Because her son was not by her side. No matter how much glory she had, without her son by her side, everything was dim and had lost its radiance. Of course, every mother hoped that her son would have a bright future and be able to do great things. But when her son really had a bright future and was able to do great things, it would be the time for him to leave her. That long-lasting yearning could really drive people crazy. Staying by her side and being able to do great things were undoubtedly a pair of extreme contradictions. But it was also something that every mother had to face and make a choice. The most painful choice in life was nothing more than this. Because no matter what choice one made, it would be accompanied by pain. If her son was useless, she would stay by her side and be angry every day. Why was she so useless? Why can't you do a better job? But if she really had a bright future and walked out, she would be worried every day. As long as she did not see it with her own eyes, she would not be at ease. The pitiful hearts of parents in the world were mostly like this. Seeing that the shadow was gradually shrinking, Yang Ruolan finally sighed again and prepared to go back. It seemed that her son would not come back today. If he couldn't do it today, there was still tomorrow. If he couldn't do it tomorrow, there was still the day after tomorrow. At the moment when Yang Ruolan turned around, there was suddenly a long howl from somewhere far away. It floated in the sky and shook the world. It was a shout. "I'm back." Hearing this, Yang Ruolan, who was about to leave, suddenly stiffened as if she had been struck by lightning. Then, her face suddenly flushed red and 2 streams of hot tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes. Then, she suddenly flew up and madly ran in the direction of the origin of the sound. This voice. Even if no one in the world could tell who it belonged to, Yang Ruolan would definitely not hear it wrongly. She would definitely not recognize it wrongly. That was her son's voice. "My son is back. He's back by my side. Yang Ruolan felt that there was hot blood in her chest burning and boiling. She ran and sped, oblivious to the strange looks of the passers-by. She even faintly felt a strong sense of dizziness rising. At this moment Yang Ruolan almost wanted to cry. Actually, she didn't know that 2 streams of clear tears had already flowed out of her eyes the moment she heard that sound, scattering all over the road she had come from. Yang Yang. Yang Ruolan shouted loudly. Her tears flowed out along with her shout and fell onto the wind and dust. A few figures flashed from the clouds and a black shadow rushed down from the clouds like a meteor. Chu Yang opened his arms and rushed into his mother's embrace. Mother, Chu Yang had lived 2 lives and had experienced so many things. It could be said that he had experienced a lot of worldly affairs. His state of mind had long been as firm as a rock. It was difficult to find anything in this world that could easily move him. But at this moment, when he saw his mother running wildly in the wind and calling out his name as if she was unconscious, his heart suddenly ached, and tears uncontrollably flowed out of his eyes. Without any hesitation he rushed down. He rushed into Yang Ruolan's embrace. Yang Ruolan hugged Chu Yang tightly and muttered to herself, Child, you're back. Yang, I missed you so much. Chapter 2482. Yang Ruolan's tears streamed down her face as she spoke. Chu Yang also choked with sobs and hugged his mother tightly. The 2 of them hugged each other tightly, feeling each other's presence. After a long time, Yang Ruolan lifted her son's head from her arms. She wiped her tears and looked at him carefully. You child, why have you lost so much weight? Yang, you must have suffered a lot. My poor son, you're so young but your face already shows signs of hardship. How can being outside compare to being at home? Chu Yang smiled through his tears. Mother, we've traveled a long way back, how can I not show signs of hardship? Let me wash my face, I'll be fine. Your son is still so handsome. How have I lost weight? I'm 7.5 pounds heavier than when I left. I think I'm going to become fat soon. Yang Ruolan said discontentedly, You child, you talk back to me the moment you come back. If I say you've lost weight, you've lost weight. How did you become fat? How did you become fat? In a mother's eyes, as long as the child was not by her side, he would definitely not be able to eat or sleep well. Even if he was really fat, it would be because he had lost weight. Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, Mother, your daughters-in-law are also here? Yang Ruolan was shocked and almost panicked. Is my hair messy? Are my clothes wrinkled? Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did I say so earlier? Chu Yang muttered in his heart. The next moment, Chu Yang witnessed his mother's extraordinary face-changing skills. Yang Ruolan pushed Chu Yang away. Then, with an unstoppable speed, she quickly tidied up her hair and wiped her face. She took out a silk handkerchief from her arms and cleaned herself up. Then, with a whoosh, the dust on her body completely disappeared. She turned to Chu Yang and gave him a bright smile. She was graceful and kind, serious and generous. She smiled without showing her teeth and said, Yang, where's your wife? Chu Yang was dumbfounded. It turned out that his mother was actually so powerful. She changed her appearance so quickly. From a mother who missed her son so much to a mother-in-law who was waiting to meet her new daughter-in-law in an instant. This kind of skill is really incredible, unbelievable, incomprehensible and inexplicable. Too shocking. Too powerful. In a flash, Tai Budian was the first to appear. She was pushed out by Wu Qianqian and Imo Qinggu. Her Majesty Butian was the first daughter-in-law to marry into the family and continue the Chu family's bloodline. If she didn't take the lead, who would? The former emperor, who was now the daughter-in-law of the Chu clan, was blushing and at a loss. Well, it wasn't too surprising. The person before him was a standard acquaintance. Other than being his mother-in-law now, she was also his senior sister in the past. The empress' heart was also filled with awkwardness. Although they had met before and had acknowledged each other's identities, it was still awkward every time they met, wasn't it? Yang Ruolan was also startled. Then she smiled, Tai Budian was shy and went down on her knees. Daughter-in-law Budian pays her respects to mother-in-law. Yang Ruolan couldn't stop smiling. She hurriedly helped her up. Quickly get up. This isn't the first time we've met. Why do you need to be so courteous? You're really? Tai Budian stood up with a red face. Yang Ruolan was about to pull Tai Budian home when she saw 2 figures moving in front of her. In an instant, there were 2 more beautiful women who bowed down to her. Daughter-in-law Qianqian pays her respects to mother-in-law. Daughter-in-law Qingwu pays her respects to mother-in-law. Mo Qingwu and Wu Qianqian had actually met Yang Ruolan before. It was just that they weren't Chu Yang's daughter-in-law at that time, so there wasn't that awkwardness. But now they were greeting their mother-in-law as daughters-in-law. The uneasiness in their hearts was really indescribable. At least it couldn't be described with words. Uneasiness. Will mother-in-law take a liking to me? Will she think I'm too frivolous? Will she have a bad first impression? Will she? The two women were thinking and deliberating. At the same time, they had to try their best to maintain the best side of themselves. But they didn't know which one of their faces had long been burned red. Yang Ruolan was stunned. She didn't expect to welcome 3 daughters-in-law today. And every one of them was beautiful. Every one of them was a peerless beauty that was hard to find in the world. Oh my! Get up, get up. Yang Ruolan hurriedly went forward to help them up. She had finally helped tie Buddy-in up first. Otherwise her hands wouldn't be enough. She turned back and glared fiercely at her son. You little brat, you're going to teach me a lesson when you come back. This is our first meeting and I ran out like this without bringing any greeting gift. Such a discourtesy, what do you think I should do? Just as she was thinking, she felt 2 jade bracelets suddenly appear in her hands. Then she blinked. She hurriedly chuckled. First meeting? You're all people who have seen the world. You don't care about anything good. Yes, this is our Chu clan's heirloom. Come, each of you put it on. Once you put it on, you're a member of our Chu clan. Chu Yang coughed in his heart. This is our heirloom? Yang Ruolan smiled amiably and handed the jade bracelets over. The next moment she was stunned. To think that I said it so modestly. Once these 2 jade bracelets were taken out, there were thousands of rays of light and thousands of auspicious colors shining brightly. It was as if the entire galaxy had been condensed in these bracelets. These were the best goods that Chu Yang had made himself after he made a windfall in Yuan Tianjie's treasury. The good things in the personal treasury of a heavenly emperor were definitely not simple goods. As long as one was a woman, they would basically have no resistance when they saw such good things. Yang Ruolan held the bracelets and almost couldn't bear to give them away. Mo Qingwu was delighted to see them. She cheered and put them on her wrist without another word. She turned them up and down, loving them so much that she couldn't bear to put them down. Wu Qianqian also took the bracelets. She kept playing with them while thanking them repeatedly. Obviously she cherished them very much. The corner of Yang Ruolan's mouth couldn't help but twitch. When she saw Tai Buddy-in standing at the side empty-handed, she felt even more upset. She reached out and twisted Chu Yang's ear. You little bastard. However, he felt a warmth in his palms. 2 more bracelets that radiated radiance appeared. Chu Yang winked in a deliberately mystifying manner. His intention was self-evident. Yang Ruolan, who had her wish fulfilled, immediately regained her grace and generosity. She handed one of the bracelets to Tai Buddy-in and smiled kindly. I forgot to give it to you the last time I came in. I'll make it up to you this time. Thank you, Granny. The 3 girls thanked her at the same time. Yang Ruolan smiled from ear to ear. Good girl. As for the remaining bracelet, it was quietly worn on his wrist as if it had been there for a long time. After wearing this bracelet, I'll be completely immune to attacks below the level of a sage. Chu Yang kept this in his heart and didn't say it out loud. After all, to Mo Qingwu and the others, saint-level attacks couldn't hurt them, not to mention immunity. But to Yang Ruolan, who was still in the heavenly continent, it was a real treasure for self-defense. In the entire heavenly continent, there wasn't even a heaven-level expert, not to mention a sage. After Yang Ruolan put it on, she could be said to be invincible. That night, the entire Chu clan was brightly lit. Everyone in the Chu clan was in high spirits. Old Master Chu Xiongqing's laughter never stopped. Only Chu Le's parents were a little disappointed. After all, their daughter didn't come back this time, and they didn't know when she would return. Fortunately, Chu Yang explained that Chu Le was very powerful now, and she was very happy. She had even found her own happiness. In the near future, she would be able to bring her son-in-law back with her and so on. After a round of consolation, Third Master Chu's parents finally felt relieved and began to look forward to it eagerly. After a sleepless night, everyone in the Chu clan drank to their heart's content. Even Chu Failing, who had always been steady, drank until he was dead drunk. Looking at his son and his 3 beautiful daughters-in-law, First Master Chu only felt extremely comforted. How could he not get drunk? The Tribulation Sword Master was back. This piece of news was undoubtedly earth-shattering news to the entire Heavenly Layer continent. In fact, on that night, the local law enforcement hall came to report. Moon Breeze, the two Dharma Supremes, immediately set off with their daughter and came here. The reason why they brought their daughter along was because of the relationship between her and the Chu clan. Along with them was the powerful and indispensable Lord Di Wuqingru. Not long after receiving this news, they received new news one after another. Duke Yu and his wife came together and were currently on their way. There was also news from the lower three heavens palace. Iron Cloud Emperor Tai Yang had already set off and was heading towards the upper three heavens. Looks like this little guy also misses his parents. This news made Chu Yang and Tai Budian very gratified. All in all, the entire heavenly continent fell into an unprecedented storm of frenzy and excitement because of the return of the Tribulation Sword Master. Even some bandit organizations on the continent, some famous assassins, and some unstable groups, regardless of whether they were well known or not, all of them closed their businesses and reorganized in these few days. They closed their doors and didn't come out. They were extremely honest and tactful. What a joke, how could they not know what was good for them? The legendary Tribulation Sword Master was a person who abhorred evil. What if the old man found out that he was being dishonest? If he came to find them, they would be extremely unlucky. He wouldn't even need to make a move. He could just blow them apart, he could even save that breath. As long as he twitched his mouth and gave a signal, there would naturally be many people who would do it for him. It wouldn't even be too easy to kill people. So during this period it was better to be honest. They only had one life, so it was better to cherish it. The entire upper three heavens was in a state of turmoil. Countless clans rushed their horses as fast as they could. All of them were clan masters. They rushed to the flat mountain ridge in the southeast. They wanted to meet the legend of heaven, Lord Tribulation Sword. Chapter 2483. Of course, these clans must have prepared ample gifts. It could be said that the financial resources made up of the gifts that were still on the way were enough to completely rebuild the dominant clans of the past, or even better. Speaking of which, Chu Yang's return this time brought a lot of benefits. Of course, Chu Yang himself didn't care about these gifts. After all, someone's vision was very high now. But the Chu clan really cared about these gifts. This time they had really struck it rich. And a big one. That night, after several comforts, Chu Yang finally helped his mother to sleep. Then he walked out quietly and went to the backyard along the path that he used in the past. In the backyard there was a lonely little courtyard in the woods. Chu Yang stepped on the dead branches and walked towards the old ancestor of the Chu clan, Chu Xiaoxin. The old ancestor's indifferent voice seemed to ring in his ears again. "Step on the green grass, don't step on my dead grass." Chu Yang sighed in his heart. The gate of the courtyard was still closed as it was that day. Obviously, Chu Xiaoxin didn't allow anyone to disturb his peace. He knocked on the door but no one answered. Chu Yang gave the door a hard push. With a creaking sound, the dust that had accumulated on the door of the courtyard dissipated. As far as the eye could see, there were thick dead grass and dense green grass in the courtyard. Chu Yang floated up and stood on the stone steps that were full of moss. "You're Chu Yang, right?" An indifferent voice sounded. "Yes, it's me. I'm back." "Greetings, old ancestor," Chu Yang said respectfully. This greeting came from the bottom of his heart. He didn't have the slightest bit of negligence because his strength had long surpassed that of his ancestors. "Very good." That indifferent voice carried a kind of indescribable tiredness and sentimentality. He said, "You've come back at the right time. You can make it in time to send me off." Chu Yang was startled. "Old ancestor, what's wrong with you?" A green shadow flashed and Chu Xiaoxin's thin body and thin face appeared in front of Chu Yang. He smiled lightly. "Nothing's wrong with me. It's just that, these days I've been feeling that your old ancestor misses me very much." He smiled warmly and longingly. "I miss her too. It's time to go over and accompany her." Chu Yang was speechless. Facing Chu Xiaoxin's aloofness of seeing through life and death, he didn't know what to say for a moment. "Originally, I should have gone there a long time ago. Back then, when you rushed up to the Heaven Palace, I already wanted to go there." Chu Xiaoxin gestured for Chu Yang to sit down. Then he said calmly, "It's just that you've entered into an unknown situation. To the heavens it's an end, but to the other side, it's just a beginning. I don't know if you can stand firm, so I've been worried all along. Now that you've finally come back, I know that you've stood firm. I'll go down and see your grandmother." Chu Yang sat down respectfully and said, "Perhaps old grandmother still hopes that you can stay and watch over the healthy growth of her grandchildren. You may not understand old grandmother's true meaning." Chu Xiaoxin chuckled. You're still so crafty." Your grandmother might not want me to go over, but this old man is already very tired, and I really miss her. Chu Yang was silent. He only felt a heart-wrenching feeling rising in his heart all of a sudden. Chu Xiaoxin said sadly, "They've all gone. I'm the only one left here. Every day I can only talk to myself. There's no one who can accompany me to relieve my boredom. You're all good. You all want to accompany me. But every time I see you, I always feel that I'm one step further away from this world. After all, we're not in the same era anymore." Chu Xiaoxin smiled lightly. "My heart has already dried up. What's the point of forcing myself to live on?" Chu Yang sighed deeply and said, "Back then old grandmother had said, to let you finish those teas." Chu Xiaoxin looked at the pot of tea in front of him with great nostalgia. His eyes were brimming with infinite tenderness. Finally he got up, took out the tea and made a cup for himself and Chu Yang. He said sadly, "Chu Yang, do you know what kind of feeling I actually have in my heart every time I open this pot of tea and drink it?" Chu Yang's heart shook. "This is the tea that my wife personally roasted for me. And my wife has already passed away from me for more than 1,000 years. Chu Xiaoxin sighed. "The fragrance of the tea is still there, but where is she? Where is the young girl who wore a ponytail and picked tea for me back then? Where is she now? Where is the wife who accompanied me through trials and tribulations and never left me? Where is the woman who had given birth to my children and helped me through thick and thin?" Chu Yang lowered his head slowly. Looking at the green tea floating up and down in the teacup, he only felt that his heart was heavy. That was a kind of indescribable sadness. The tea floated up and down, and the passing of 1,000 years. That kind of loneliness and desolation, who else could really understand it? "With you in the Chu clan I'm very relieved. I can leave in peace." Chu Xiaoxin said softly, "I believe she's also very relieved. But old ancestor, you've always walked the path of sentiments." Chu Yang tried his best to say, "It's still narrow-minded of you to leave like this." Chu Xiaoxin looked at Chu Yang warmly and said softly, "Is it really narrow-minded? What's the path of sentiments?" Chu Yang, when one's feelings reach the depth of one's heart, there's no resentment. When one's feelings reach the depth of one's heart, there's no resentment. It's the same for life and death. Upon hearing that, Chu Yang's heart shook. He was speechless for a long time. The two of them didn't speak for a long time. It was late at night. The wind blew outside as if crying and complaining. The trees rustled. There was silence. Chu Xiaoxin said softly, "Go ahead." That night, Chu Xiaoxin passed away in that dilapidated small courtyard. His face was serene, and there was still a smile at the corners of his mouth. There was genuine joy and yearning in his eyes. For more than 1,000 years, this was the only thing that he really wanted to do, and he finally did it. This respectable old man who had protected the Chu clan for a generation could finally put down the burden on his shoulders. He passed away very peacefully, very gratified and very relaxed. This day was the greatest expectation of the latter half of his life. In other words, ever since his wife and brothers passed away one by one, he was only alive as a body that could breathe. He was carrying the responsibility of protecting his descendants. Now he could finally put it all down. The funeral arrangements for the old man were very grand. The patron saint who had protected the Chu clan for a generation could finally rest in peace. He was buried together with his wife. Chu Yang stood in front of the grave for a long time. This was an old grave from more than 1,000 years ago. Now it was finally opened up and buried again. There were traces of withered grass mixed in the fresh soil. After more than 1,000 years of separation, the husband and wife were finally buried together. Chu Yang carefully put that pot of tea into the grave. If you found the old grandmother earlier, you naturally didn't have to drink this. But if you couldn't find her for the time being, during the process of searching, the old grandmother's tea would accompany you. Love is not lonely. Love is not lonely. The sun was setting. Chu Yang's figure was elongated. He was still thinking about Chu Xiaoxin's words. "Chu Yang, what is the path of love? When love reaches the depth of love, there will be no resentment. And no resentment is the path of love. This is the path of love." In a trance, he understood in his heart. "It turns out that I'm narrow-minded. It turns out that this is the path of love. It turns out that this is the path of love." Chu Yang seemed to have heard something breaking. Such a sound rose in his heart. It seemed to be very ethereal, but it was so obvious. In the next few days, the entire courtyard of the Chu clan was busy. But Chu Yang was much quieter. His state of mind was constantly changing. Sometimes he just sat quietly and watched Mo Qingwu and the other two chatting happily for the whole afternoon and night. He didn't show any impatience, as if he was an outsider. This kind of silence was, without a doubt, very abnormal. Chu Yang could clearly feel that the little golden man in his dantian was changing. Although the whole process was slow, it was really abnormal. Although it was slow, it could be observed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The little golden man slowly opened his eyes. It was a pair of eyes without any impurities, as pure as a newborn baby's. Then, the little golden figure, which had never changed in size since it condensed its nascent soul, began to slowly grow. Moreover, its color gradually deepened. In just 3 days, it had transformed into a faint purplish gold color. It was a color that was completely different from its previous appearance. In addition, Chu Yang also felt that his own strength was gradually increasing. It seemed that there was a considerable increase every minute and every second. Chu Yang felt a little surprised at such a change in such a fast speed. The higher one's strength was, the more difficult it was to increase one's cultivation. For example, Chu Yang's current strength was at the level of a senior sage. If he wanted to increase his strength further, he would need countless years of accumulation. Ordinary warriors would often stop at a bottleneck and never be able to make any progress. Chu Yang's current situation was almost unimaginable. The only explanation was that it was a breakthrough in the state of mind. In fact, it was also so. That day when he had a chat with old Master Chu Xiaoxin, Chu Yang's state of mind, which had been stagnant for a long time, had a significant increase. He directly reached the sky in one step as if he had become a Buddha, and reached a wonderful state. As far as martial artists were concerned, the composition of their state of mind mostly included their own cultivation, skills, and their own state of mind. The so-called state of mind was a level that was produced by the changes in the state of mind. This state of mind couldn't be described with words, and could only be understood and understood. And if martial artists wanted to break through the boundary of the state of mind, it all came from epiphany. Once one had an epiphany, he or she would become a saint immediately. But to achieve epiphany, one could only come across it by chance. Only when the opportunity came, one could achieve epiphany. And now Chu Yang could say that this opportunity had come. Chapter 2485. There was no definite conclusion to the so-called opportunity. Everything had the opportunity to be enlightened, and the most common opportunity for martial artists was battles and battles between life and death. For example, Chu Yang and his tribulation brothers were young, but they could reach a level that ordinary people could only reach after hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of years. Apart from using too many heavenly treasures, it was also because they had experienced too many battles of life and death. It was precisely because they wandered on the edge of life and death that they could repeatedly break through their limits and reach a higher level. However, there were pros and cons to everything in the world. It was precisely because life and death no longer posed a threat to them that this kind of half-artificial opportunity to be enlightened was difficult to create. For example, Chu Yang's current cultivation was not in line with his own realm, so it was difficult for him to exert the true power that he should have. In terms of Chu Yang's own situation, his current realm was that of a high-level saint, and he had the support of the great spiritual infant. His normal power should be more than twice that of an ordinary high-level saint, but the real power that Chu Yang could exert was only 3 to 4 times that of an ordinary high-level saint. Although this power was already commendable, it was actually lacking a lot. In the previous battle with the 2 heavenly demon kings, Chu Yang had gathered all the battle power of several generations of Tribulation brothers, as well as the support of Tribulation Sword technique, and Tribulation battle formation. In the end, he was only lucky enough to escape. This result seemed very amazing, but in fact it was unbearable. And the reason for this was that although Chu Yang's current cultivation was already above that of an ordinary high-level saint, his state of mind was far below the standard. There was even a gap between him and an ordinary high-level saint. And the conversation with old Master Chu had triggered Chu Yang's state of enlightenment in a hidden way. Therefore, Chu Yang felt that his cultivation had improved tremendously, and the golden little person in his body had also improved a lot. This was all reasonable. And where there was an opportunity, there were often all kinds of strange things. A scene, a sentence, or even a word, as long as the spiritual opportunity was triggered, it could produce enlightenment. This was the most typical example of something that could only be encountered by chance. What old Master Chu said to Chu Yang was, in fact, mostly meant for himself. Deep emotions are not the path of sentiments. Without resentment is the true path of sentiments. However, this sentence had touched Chu Yang to the extreme. Its meaning was even more profound. Chu Yang seemed to be able to faintly feel that his state of mind, which had been covered in dust due to countless massacres, was slowly recovering its clarity. It was gradually recovering to a state as pure and flawless as when he was just born. The barrier that had been unbreakable all this while was also slowly disintegrating. It was only a matter of time before it completely shattered. Much of the genuine qi that was normally stored in his meridians and was difficult to mobilize also flowed out of his body. Those obstacles that he knew existed but could not do anything about were now gone. Now, Chu Yang's body was extremely comfortable. It was as if his entire dantian had become a large lake, and the hundreds of meridians had become a river without any obstruction. And in these unobstructed river channels, too much water was surging in without end. It was endless. At the same time, the extremely pure spiritual qi in the world was also madly pouring into the countless meridians in his body. From spiritual qi to yuan qi, it entered his dantian. At the same time, his dantian slowly lit up. The originally pale golden figure was gradually becoming stronger and more robust. Chu Yang was extremely surprised. In just a few days' time, he could clearly feel that his strength had almost doubled compared to when he was in the heavenly imperial court. Or even more. And this kind of improvement was still rapidly increasing. And this time, the growth of his cultivation was completely different from the past. In the past, it was basically because of a kind of excitement and passion for battle. But this time, the growth was hidden with happiness. Calmness. Right now, Chu Yang's own cultivation was already at the peak of the saint level in the true sense of the word. If before this, Chu Yang gave people the feeling of a towering mountain. Although the mountain was high, it still had its limits and one could see the end of it. But now, Chu Yang gave people the feeling of a vast ocean, boundless and unfathomable. Brother Chu has really changed a lot compared to when he was in the heavenly imperial court. You're much more composed and indifferent now. If you were to say that you did it deliberately in the past, now you're doing it from the bottom of your heart. You're doing it unintentionally. You can't be mentioned in the same breath as before. Yu Lingxue observed Chu Yang and said sincerely. On the other side, Feng Yuro nodded in agreement. In her arms, there was a little girl who looked like she was carved from jade. She was only 2 or 3 years old. She was curiously looking at Chu Yang with her clear black and white eyes. Her 2 chubby little hands were holding the toy that she had just received. The Moon Breeze couple was the fastest to rush over. And that little girl was the Moon Breeze couple's only daughter, Yu Xiaodai. This little girl was probably more or less Chu Yang's future wife. No, daughter-in-law. Actually, Chu Yang smiled and said, just 3 to 5 days ago I wasn't like this. This kind of change only happened a few days after I returned to the heavenly imperial court. The Moon Breeze couple couldn't help but be surprised when they heard that. They hurriedly asked for the details. Mo Qingwu and the other 2 sat at the side to keep them company. Before long, Yu Xiaodai had already climbed onto Wu Qianqian's lap. The little girl was young but very strong, not at all afraid of strangers. The hall was filled with laughter. The Dharma Supreme is still faster. A gentle voice rang out. Diwu Qingru stepped in. This peerless sage who had confronted Chu Yang for several years was still as graceful and indifferent as before. Diwu Qingru's entry into the conversation didn't make anyone feel that it was abrupt. Later on, when Chu Yang talked about the battle against the extraterrestrial demons, Brother Diwu, as a good man and an unparalleled military advisor, if you can't display your skills in the extraterrestrial battlefield on the other side, it's really one of the biggest regrets of your life. Chu Yang said seriously, I wonder if Brother Diwu wants to participate in the battle against the extraterrestrial demons? Diwu Qingru was silent for a long time. After a while he also said seriously, no. Not anymore. Firstly, for people like me and Mo Tianji, coexisting in the world isn't a fortunate thing. There's no meaning in being friends. Only when we're opponents can we feel the joy of not wasting our lives. And Mo Tianji is already enough as the military advisor of the Heaven Imperial Palace. If there's another one, it may not be a fortunate thing for us. Chu Yang sighed and nodded lightly. Diwu Qingru's tone was full of confidence and pride. But Chu Yang knew that he had such confidence. Not long after, Duke Yu and Jun Lulu came together. These 2 were even more familiar with Chu Yang. The moment they met, they started to quarrel with him. Duke Yu wasn't polite at all. He opened his palm and said, hurry up and give me all the treasures of the Heaven Imperial Palace. Toys, delicious food, fun things, valuable things, memorable things, heavenly treasures, leave all of them for me. Oh right, leave me more of your heavy pills too. If it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't holding a saber in his hand and wasn't shouting, I opened this mountain, he was almost like a robber. Greedy. The others laughed and scolded at the same time. What greedy! Duke, you said righteously, now that I've finally met such a rich man again, how can I not squeeze some oil out of him? I should squeeze more oil out of him. Don't you see that he's so much fatter than before? Bah, how is he fatter? This is called healthy, this is called sturdy. These are all muscles, okay? What do you know? Chu Yang was a little flustered and exasperated by Duke Yu's words. He hurriedly explained and even became a little incoherent. Haha, that morning the Chu clan held a banquet. Chu Yang and a group of old friends gathered together. Everyone solemnly promised that no one would use their cultivation to force themselves to drink. They would fight with their real alcohol tolerance. In the afternoon they chatted and talked again. And in the evening, it was almost time for dinner. Suddenly, someone hurriedly reported, "Young master is here." Yang Rulan's attention was immediately diverted. Without another word, she went out to receive her grandson with a big smile. Tai Budian also rushed out excitedly after her. Sure enough, in just a short while Yang Rulan and Tai Budian walked in, each holding the hand of a fair-skinned boy. That boy looked to be at most 7 years old. He had a mischievous look on his face and his eyes were darting around. Everyone laughed together. The one who came was Chu Yang's baby Tai Yang. But he was much taller than the average little boy of this age. Only the Moon Breeze couple smiled a little bitterly. This little devil is here. Just as the atmosphere was bustling, a crisp and somewhat childish voice called out, "Hubby, you're here." This voice struck Chu Yang and everyone else as if they had been struck by lightning. They looked in the direction of the voice in a daze. The faces of the Moon Breeze couple, who were at the source of the voice, were completely bitter. They looked as if they were about to cry. Sigh, this family is so unfortunate. Of course, this extremely shocking sentence was not said by the two of them, but by the little girl in Feng Yuro's arms. With an excited look on her face, she waved her short arms and legs with all her might. After a few struggles, she landed on the ground and ran over to greet them. Just as everyone was petrified, they heard the 7-year-old little boy cheering. "Wow, wifey, you're here too. I missed you so much," a 3-year-old girl called her husband and a 5-year-old boy called her wifey. Just as everyone's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, they saw that the two little fellows were already hugging each other without any pretense. The little boy kissed the little girl's tender face and asked with a grin, "Wifey, I missed you so much. Did you miss me?" The little girl hugged the little boy's neck with her lotus-like arms and nodded obediently. "I missed you so much," smack smack. A series of kisses came one after another. Everyone broke down at the same time. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.